Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Haunted Vermont podcast. My name, as always, is Paul Doski, and tonight we are going to talk with an actress because she was in a local Vermont short horror film that is based on a local legend, which, depending on the crowd of people kind of waver between it's an overrated legend or people just don't really know about it. So it's really interesting how that works. But anyway, without further ado, we can talk more about the legend in a minute, but let's get on our actress, which by the name is Emily Bennett. Emily, welcome aboard.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for your time and stuff like that to arrange this and everything else. So, before we begin, Emily, before we even go into the Vermont legend and stuff like that, I think it would be a nice little way to figure out who is Emily Bennett? And
I'm constantly asking myself the same thing. I'm Emily Bennett. I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, so a very different climate than the THAW takes place in. But born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, quickly realized I wanted to be an actress and got into the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts when I was about 17 and moved to London. So I trained as an actor in London with very famous British actors of stage and screen, and it was a wonderful experience. It really gave me a great appreciation of classical drama, Shakespeare. I was a history nerd, so anything that was like a period piece or in a corset, I was very excited about. Then I moved back to the States, living in New York and Chicago off and on, got my SAG card, continued acting, and then that actually led me into filmmaking myself. So mostly nowadays, I am a screenwriter and a film director. I'm repped by Spectrovision, Elijah Wood's company, and I write mostly horror and psychological thriller films that sometimes I act in and sometimes I am just the director. And that is actually how I met Sean and Sarah, the directors of the THAW. I met them at a horror film festival where I wrote and directed a short film that I also acted in, and they were very sweet and approached me after saying they loved my performance and they'd love to talk to me about a really exciting short film, and that's the short film we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love when stuff like that happens and how, that sort of environment connects people and then it turns into almost like a network and committee, if I can even say it like that. But either way, though, it's an amazing way to find people that are into the same stuff as you. Now, just real quick, for people that are listening, so yes, Emily brought up the title of the short film called The THAW, which is also obviously the episode title of this, because otherwise, why did you not click on it, I guess? I don't even know. Anyway, so just to give everybody a quick summary of what is going on with The THAW. So in the late 19th century in the challenging Vermont hills, Ruth and her aging parents struggle to subsist on a failing farm after Ruth is abandoned by an unfaithful husband. They turn to a remedy as old as the hills, a potion that allows the elderly and infirm to sleep out the winter months while frozen and packed in snow. To be safely revived in the spring, Ruth faces the prospect of surviving the winter on her own. When a storm blows in an early thaw, the ritual is broken and the sleepers wake too soon, awakening a monstrous appetite in Ruth's fodder. Will Ruth be able to do what it takes to survive? So there you go.
Yes.
So, this did premiere on the YouTube channel called Alter.
Hmm.
I actually forgot when exactly it got premiered, but I know it was like almost a month or so ago. And so yeah, so I guess Emily, before we kind of start about the thaw, so what about the Vermont legend that it is actually talking about? You know, the whole frozen people legend of this, really, of what you've been or what you were acting in. Basically, did you know about this legend prior? Did you have to look it up, or were you kind of pretty much knowledgeable of some of the legends, regardless?
No, I was not aware of this um, urban legend or rural legend. No, Sean and Sarah, it was the first time I had ever heard about it, and they mentioned it when they approached me with the role. Just saying, that they're from Vermont, or Sean's from Vermont at least, and they live in Vermont now, and they were just really interested in exploring a kind of legend from the land. And I'm from the South. We have our own ghost stories and legends, but I found this so interesting and like an oddly practical urban legend in a way, because as you know, Paul, and I live upstate New York now with my husband.
Right.
It gets really snowy, and like right now, I'm looking at snow outside, waiting for it to melt for the season. I know it's going to be a little bit longer, but way back in the day when there wasn't central heating and Wi-Fi and all the things we have now, it's interesting to hear these stories about how people would survive winters. And I loved this kind of legend that, just to save on food and supplies, people would just put the older people in their family to sleep. They would literally freeze them, and then thaw them in the spring. And I'm sure that's how we all feel in the winter in Vermont and upstate New York. But obviously this didn't actually happen. You can't spoiler, you can't really in real life like freeze someone and then thaw them. It doesn't quite work that way. But this legend said no, it does. And a lot of local people would say, "Oh no, actually, I heard that happened to my great great grandfather," or, and maybe, sure, that's cool. I just found it such an enticing story and legend to kind of base a short film on. So yeah, to answer your question, I had never heard of it, but it instantly like caught my attention. It felt a little like an old timey Twilight Zone in a way.
Yes, I do agree with that. It does feel like almost like it should be like a perfect episode for the Twilight Zone. Not only that, but like part of the legend state too that this particular uh, family group, basically somebody kept like a journal of supposedly like everything, and then this guy too that was invited to see the process wrote notes about, this is what they did. And then he came back when it was time for the family to get sought out. And, he
Mm.
wrote the experience there. So it's one of those things where, it's like, well, was there really a journal or was there really not a journal? So, I mean, who knows
Yeah.
in this aspect?
Yeah, and that's the fun of legends like this because there's so little, there's not really footage of 19th century Vermont. Like we have photographs, and in working with Sean and Sarah um, on this short film, it was really important for them to share photographs of the area, books, um, that really detailed life and farm life in 19th century Vermont. But there's no footage, and so all we have are these texts, like the journal you're talking about. And because there's not a lot of information, the imagination can kind of run wild. Um, and that's I guess how they came up with this beautiful, horrific short film.
Well, yeah, I mean, like exactly like what you just said there. I mean, the imagination is a beautiful thing, I think. But once you start to take that away from the audience, then where is the imagination? Where is the mystery? Like, if you start answering everything, then what's left?
Mm, very true.
I mean, I know this is like a haunted Vermont podcast, but I can give you a quick example for what I'm saying too. Like, everybody should know this, this classic film, like Aliens, like, Alien 3, all that stuff.
Mm,
But as soon
yeah.
as you start bringing in, like, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, the mystery about the engineers that we saw and this and that, what was the imagination and mysterious aspect of what those things were now kind of falls into, well, if this is what it is, then the mystery and imagination is gone now because we already know what it is. Or now
Mm,
we know what it is.
totally. Well, it's like Jaws, right? Jaws is scary because you don't see the shark most of the time, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's what's underneath, and I think the interesting thing about the Thaw is even though they brought this legend to life, I don't think they answer every question about this ritual, which is why I find the film is successful. Because we don't actually know what's in this potion, why does it go wrong, and what happens to her father. Because the real horrifying thing about the film is when they're going through the ritual and Ruth, the character I played, does it as well as she can. This is the first time she's ever really had to do this and follow her mother's instructions and from older books. But the horrific part of this is when it kind of goes wrong. And that's not in the book. That's not written down. And so what happens when things go awry? I think, and the mystery of what happens to the dad, I still don't really know, and I was in the film. I'm not really sure what happens to him. I guess you'd have to talk to the actor who played him, because whatever he was doing was very terrifying.
Yeah, if I can get a hold of him, I would gladly ask him what is going on here. But that leads to the question is, do we want to know? Do we want to leave that part out so we don't know? Again, that's kind of
Yeah,
like falls back into the imagination of what happened. So, yeah.
totally.
But yeah, so you did start talking about the thaw. So Emily, tell us a little bit more about it. So, you kind of just said, you met Sean and Sarah, and they asked you about this role, and everything else. So I guess explain to us a little bit more of filming the thaw. Really, I guess. I see that it was uh, filmed in Stowe, Vermont, which is a beautiful town anyway, full of legends there,
Mm.
especially with like Emily's Bridge and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, so talk to us a little bit about the experience of like working with Sean, Sarah, and did you have like the freedom to try something different? See if it worked, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll shut up so you can let us know how the days of filming kind of came to be.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, like I said, Sean Temple and Sarah Wisner approached me at a film festival, and they said, we'd love for you to play this role. And I immediately was like, tell me about it. And once they told me this legend, I was like, yes, I definitely want to do this. Then COVID happened, and we all had to wait for life to continue. So honestly, this film took many years to finally get off the ground just because of COVID difficulties. So when we finally got to set, gosh, we shot this in 2022. I feel, or no, 2023. Time, COVID is still playing on my brain because I'm like, what year is it? Anyway,
I hear
we,
you.
oh my gosh, what is time? But we ended up shooting, so the woman who plays my mother, Toby Poser, she was already a dear friend of mine, and I was so glad that Sean and Sarah asked her to play my mother. And so she actually drove up. She's an upstater too, so she drove and picked me up, and we had a lovely winter drive, like a 6-hour drive to Stowe together. So that was really nice to kind of lay in that mother-daughter relationship and just to spend time together. And so we got to set. I stayed at a local hotel. The cast and crew were put up, just locally in Stowe, and we were shooting in a historical house that was owned by a couple, and they were there the entire time. They were so lovely and welcoming. And this house was, oh my gosh, it was on top of a mountain, like kept like a museum, this place. It was incredible. There were certain portions of like the kitchen that were modern, like a modern fridge, but overall the husband and wife had really worked to maintain the historical integrity of this wonderful home. The wife, who I really spoke to most, her name is Lyndall. I won't say her last name just for privacy, but she was so wonderful and so welcoming, and the house was just so fascinating. Like I felt like I had gone back in time when I got there. So we traveled up. We went to set. I was fit for all of my wardrobe, which were very, very like period appropriate, very heavy wools, and went to set. And I worked with a magic consultant on set as well, which was so interesting because I had never worked with someone to consult like magic before. Deirdre Katero, she was just wonderful, and so I got to know the tools that Ruth would use and hold the items, the stage, and the different herbs and things that she would know. So that was kind of my introduction to the world, was just very physical, breathing in the space, moving in the space, feeling the costumes, and really starting to feel lived in. And then we started shooting, and I think we only shot for 3 days. And luckily, well, luckily and unluckily, we got a huge amount of snow the day before production. So while that was glorious, and you can see it in the film is in beautiful black and white, just so gorgeously shot. And by Damon Waldron, the DP, the cinematographer, and just the black and white, the coldness, all of that snow in frame, just made the frames they were like painting, like photographs from that era that Sean and Sarah had showed me. It was just perfect. That made production a bit difficult because we had to get like the food up the mountain and like gear and things like that, and it was difficult to shoot. But all in all, it was just so worth it, and I feel like we were just really lucky throughout the entire production, because this is a very difficult story to shoot. It's a period piece. It's black and white. You can't have a piece of modern anything in any of the frames, and so everything had to be very specific and meticulous. And on top of that, it's horror. And there are some pretty horrific sequences through this, through the parents being put to sleep in coffin-like beds outside. I had to chop wood. I had to kind of forage in the woods, and we're physically walking through these things. So it was doing a lot of the acting work for me, because that's tiring. And eventually, like I said, the horror sequences, there is blood, there is gore, there is violence in this film, and I don't want to give anything away, really, just so that people do watch the film. But the experience was really varied and exciting, and it was really kind of a magic trick, because I really felt like I was living this story while we were in it, and that's just credit to the directors and the production design and the beauty of Vermont. I mean, Vermont really played a character in this short film, so So yeah, the filming was great. That's my answer.
And I would say that's a good answer for sure. And that what you kind of said about the photography, this and that, the black and white alone is what won me over with it. It's because
Mm.
I feel like if you are going to do something like 19th century, you want black and white. You don't really want it color because then it feels like it's modern, if
Mm.
that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
like I mean, I would totally would still would love to see like some sort of colored version of this, just to kind of just see it that way. But at the same time, I don't because black and white fits, like you were just saying, like fit this timeline, the story so well that it's like why not, you know?
Totally.
And yeah, I mean the snow in there. Well, yeah, I do agree. Like that big dump of snow definitely did help, especially with the shot where it's you outside with the parents in the the boards with the hay and straw or whatever, and getting ready
Mm.
to clothe them up for the winter. But that shot over the shoulder is like the perfect shot to see like just them laying there with the heavy snow, and it's just kind of like wow, like this is it, like this is the last time your character is going to see them until spring,
Mm.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a terrifying idea, right? To put your parents, the only people in your life, to sleep and like trust that this magic will work and not kill them, you know? It was, it was very
Mm.
emotional to think about if because as an actor, you have to put yourself in the character's shoes. And if I thought, like, oh my God, like to do that to my own mother, I like, no, that terrifies me. That's so scary. So I think the emotional horror of the film is really effective too. Uh,
Not just that. And sorry if that seemed like I was cutting in, but you just saying that kind of reminded me the part where like you would even go and when or like to check on them. I think it was before the final like boarding up thing, but you were leaning
mm,
down into the boards and like listening for the heartbeat, which I thought that was a fantastic addition, where you hear that
mm.
low sounding of the heartbeat, kind of saying like, yeah, so she is still there, like alive, but she's not um man, what's a good way to put it? Like she's paralyzed, I guess. I don't know the right term here.
Yeah, yeah, she's kind of in a coma, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that was a great addition though.
yeah. I loved that moment, and that is the moment that the audience is like, are they okay? They're still alive.
You're
Um,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, so it sounds like you like when you cut in the wood and stuff, it almost sounds like this is like really like you not just getting into character, but you're really like trying to get into the story aspect of like you were saying, cutting wood, doing this, taking care of the sheep. So like I guess to prepare yourself for this type of character, especially now, like like you said, cutting wood and stuff, like I guess before maybe shooting, did you like go out to try to start cutting wood before the shooting? Like, how did you mentally prepare yourself for this?
Um, no, I didn't go out and chop wood before, but my stepfather had made me do it when I was a kid, and so I had like the physical memory of doing that. Of being like, I don't need to do this. But I'm really grateful to him because I actually remembered how when I had to get to set. So I did practice many times before I had to do that on camera. But yeah, let's see, to physically prepare. I mean, I live upstate, so I was in similar snowy conditions. So honestly, I feel like just getting around typically is like my body's kind of used to it now. I don't like it, but like getting around in the snow, you have to walk differently. You have to wear obviously different shoes, and so you don't slip and fall. But honestly, the preparation for Ruth was more mental because she's not like the most physically able person. She's, um, as you said, her husband just abandoned her basically. And back in the 19th century, most women would rely on their husbands for income, for safety, for food and shelter. And, they would keep the house. They would do needlepoint, do dishes and housework. And so that was the physical reality Ruth was coming from. And so, which is why it's so overwhelming when she gets to the country and she has to live by herself, because she's doing a lot of this for the first time. So it didn't actually make sense for me to like do a bunch of push-ups and like chop a ton of wood, because Ruth wouldn't have done that herself. She would have been blindsided by her husband leaving her and then having to figure things out in real time. So in a way, I wanted the film to surprise me constantly. I wanted to be a fish out of water as much as possible, because that makes Ruth more vulnerable, being alone in this very harsh climate. And then when the father wakes up, it is important to think of Ruth as an underdog, because when she's faced with danger, it creates more tension that, oh no, will she survive this? And so I really just wanted to lean into that. Now, Ruth is very intelligent and pays attention. And so most of my attention was paid to Ruth's inner process and her mental fortitude, and her inner strength, because I don't know that I would survive something like this. Ruth has an incredible integrity to her, and the fact, that she goes through all of this is a huge ordeal. I don't know that Emily Bennett would have fared as well. I'll just say that.
Okay, that's fair. So, to counter your comment there that you said about fish out of water, what would you say your challenging moment was?
The most challenging moment. Let's say, that's interesting. Challenging in what way? Like physically, or?
I guess both. You could, if you want both, like physically and mentally, maybe. If there is a mental one, but yeah, if there's a physical one, yeah, normally there's more physical, I would say.
Yeah, well, I can answer both actually. Physically, the most difficult thing I did was just running in the snow away from, and again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but like,
yeah, just running. You're just running away, yeah.
Just running for my life. Because I was just desperately trying not to fall the entire time. Because I know I was like, oh God, I don't want to like get hurt and then have to like pause filming. So that was like physically, funnily enough, like the hardest thing. But I would say like mentally, the hardest thing was I had to be put into one of the boxes, like one of the coffins, and I found that actually the hardest thing, partially because they were very dusty, and like particles were kind of getting in my eyes, and I was just like, ugh. But then when that happened, which didn't really hurt, it just made me that much more aware that I was in a coffin. And I think, I don't know about you or like your listeners, but being buried alive is like a horrifying prospect. Like, I think that's just a terrifying thing. And to be put in a coffin and have the lid put on was really unnerving for me. So I'd say that was probably the hardest thing for me.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So before we move on, Emily, because I don't know if I want to really ask too much more about the thaw, but are there any closing comments for the thaw that you would like to say before we move on to the last few segment questions?
No, I think I've said enough. The Thaw is streaming on YouTube on the Alter channel, so definitely watch it.
Yeah, I can't agree any more than just take a second and go watch it. It's like around 17 minutes or so, so definitely worth to watch.
Yeah.
All right, so Emily, to kind of start wrapping things up just a little bit, since this is like haunted Vermont and stuff, I almost feel like these have to sort of be like default questions in a way, but just out of curiosity. But do you have any? Is there like any thoughts or opinion that you may have on like the whole paranormal universe? It can be like ghosts, or it could be like cryptozoology. Wow.
Mm.
Okay. Or do you or even like to kind of uh have a second question that follows along the same thing is, was there any moment in your life where anything strange had happened that you could not, quite figure out what it was?
Mm. That's a good question. Let me see here. My relationship with the paranormal. It's funny. Being from Charleston, it's such a haunted city, and I've been on ghost tours, and in London, I've lived in London, and it's super haunted. I am really sad that I've never been visited by a ghost myself. And I'm like, in a horror movie, I feel like there's always like the believer and the skeptic. Um, I'm definitely the skeptic in that. But I desperately don't want to be. So I feel like I would love the paranormal to visit me in some way. It just hasn't happened yet, and I feel like if anyone's going to get haunted, my gosh, there are tons of opportunities to haunt me. Now, having said that, I will say this. I think there are, I don't know, I think places can have energies, and homes, or I don't know. The one thing I can say is, like, one of the closest people in my life passed away recently. My grandmother, my nana, and her house was just so sacred, and it had a smell all its own, and I can't really talk about it too much without getting emotional, but her home just had this energy to it, and so full of memories. And I remember after she passed away, going into that house and, like, taking certain things out, and being very careful, and working with the rest of my family to be like, okay, are you going to keep this? Okay, this is where we put this. And it was almost like the walls were still echoing our voice and her voices. Like, you couldn't hear it, but it felt like the house was still kind of vibrating with her, like with the love that she had. And I think, I don't know, I think that's kind of the closest I can say. And I don't think my grandmother would haunt me, because she I don't know, she was just so kind and loving, and I don't know that she has unfinished business necessarily to finish, but that energy stayed behind for sure. So that's the closest I can think. And then, having said that, I would very much welcome a ghost. I think that would be super cool.
Well, well, first off, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know, I
Oh,
totally
thank you.
understand that. I lost my dad in September of 2003, so heart attack. So I know exactly what you mean when it comes to having to go through somebody else's belongings and stuff like that. And then when you are in like the space where it used to be lively, I guess would be a good term right now. But yeah, I do agree with you. It's like the house kind of bears like that emotional energy that, like in this case, your Nana, loved that house, kept it and stuff like that. And, everything that the question that I wanted to kind of ask you is, had there been any weird moments where like, how can I say this? Like there's, like a specific, like a smell in the air that you would say, huh, that reminds me of Nana. Like, have you ever smelled anything that she may have worn, or like perfume wise, or anything like that to say like like that kind of like a certain smell that reminded you of her, I guess.
I mean, her specifically, yeah, for sure. I think smell is like the most evocative scent, really. It's like the most emotional scent I've heard, or yeah, like scents that we have.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think every now and then, yeah, I feel like certainly in her house, but if I smell something specific and I can't describe what it is, yeah, it'll feel like she's near for sure.
And
I will say
that would be a sign.
yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, that's true actually. I never thought of that. Well, maybe I'll pay more attention now. Now that you've said that, because I've never really thought in that way. But yeah, I guess it catches me unawares sometimes. That's a really nice thought. Thank you for that, Paul. I'll think about that if
You're
that
very
happens
welcome.
again.
Yeah, like, this is gonna sound weird. Like my dad used to smoke cigars, and he used to make certain food. So like there would be moments where I would almost smell like a cigar or something even like a cologne that
Mm.
my dad wore. Like that's another example I can give you. Also birds are, a sign. What is it? A cardinal, right? I think it's a cardinal. Like if you see a cardinal, that usually means that somebody from the other side is watching you or something like that. Don't quote me on cardinal, but I want to say it is
Oh,
a cardinal. Maybe it's a robin. I know it's one of them.
oh, that's so interesting. I like that. There's like that's so interesting. Like they're a harbinger.
Yes.
Ooh, that's very cool. Well, as a horror writer, I find that really interesting. Maybe I'll have to write something about that. That's cool.
Hmm. Um, One thing I didn't know, this is kind of going off topic for a minute, but with birds, but for some reason, talking about birds just reminded me of this, and now I just want to say it anyway. But anyway, so I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock. I love
Mm.
the movie The Birds, and I've just found out, like a while ago, that when it came to making that movie, they actually trained over like 2,000 birds for that movie.
Really?
So so that's what I read. Yeah, like they trained over 2,000 birds for that movie. It might have been
Oh
more,
my
but I
gosh,
remember 2,000.
that's crazy. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I never knew that.
yeah, I didn't either until I read it somewhere. If I find it again, I'll send it to you.
Oh my gosh, I really need to rewatch that film. Ugh, that
Hmm.
I was terrified of birds after first seeing that film. That's like, I think a testament to Hitchcock because, of course, he would have the patience to train a ton of birds, but also only he could make me afraid of birds. Like I was never afraid of birds. Like why would you be afraid of birds until Hitchcock tells you to, and then you're like, oh yeah, well now I'm terrified of birds.
Right, right. It's like what's the other weird movie that, well, I don't want to, yeah, in a way it is weird because of the whole idea of what they did with bats, but bats. I mean, they were like being controlled to do basically to assassinate you per se. So yeah.
Mm. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a weird movie for sure. But yeah, I mean, for those ideas though, so now you can definitely kind of have like a more open-minded to be like, it's that's what I can offer you now to try to see if you can spot anything like that, any sort of like weird signs like that, like birds is one, like I said, like smells,
Mm.
especially where it should not have a smell, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it any better than that, but like if you
Yeah.
smell something that should not be there and you recognize it, I guess that's where you should pay attention to it, I guess would be the best way for me to say that.
Mm. Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna keep my eye out, and I think as the snow melts and the birds come out, I'm gonna pay more attention to the birds that I see too.
Yeah, if you see one that kind of seems to be closer to your to you or like your surrounding more than the other bird, then that's the one that's usually the one that's watching, that paying a visit per se, as they say.
Cool. Okay. I'm definitely gonna pay more attention now.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear maybe in the future or something like a message from you later on. Like, I think this happened because blah, 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 blah. So it'd be nice to really see if you catch on to anything interesting, Emily, for sure. Any like little strange signs like that, I guess. So
Yeah. No, totally. I will definitely let you know.
perfect. Well, Emily, we come down to the finale, which is basically, well, we talked everything we can. I don't want to really talk more of your ear off per se, but I mean, so for everybody else that want to check out you and your work, because you said you're pretty much almost in the whole field of everything. You write, you direct, you act. I mean, like, so where can people that would like to keep up with all your projects?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best way to keep up like real time with what I'm up to is on Instagram. Um, like like a lot of people, I guess. I'm on Instagram. My handle is at Emily R. Bennett. Just my name, EmilyrBennett. Two N's, two T's. And that's the best way to do it. I also have a website, www.emilyreneebennett.com. Uh, so yeah, I keep those pretty current. So, and I'm always doing. I never know what I'm going to be doing next. So, stay tuned. I know I will.
Is there anything coming up that you could probably share or not really?
Um, let's see. I was in a really wonderful horror film called Shelby Oaks recently that premiered at Fantasia last year. The production company Neon picked it up, and it will release later this year. So that's a big, uh, awesome horror film that I had the pleasure of being in. Amazing cast and crew. And then my next feature film that I co-wrote and co-directed with my husband, Justin Brooks, will be coming out later this year as well. So I can't share anything about that one just yet, but I will keep you posted.
That sounds like an awesome little thing I get to look forward to, since I don't really know what else to say to that, because we got to be
Yeah,
quiet at the moment. But yeah,
that's all right. I know.
no, that's always the hard time when when you want to talk about something and then you can't talk about it, and it's like, oh. But anyway, Emily, again,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. Like I said, I don't want to take any more of it. So, but it's been a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to figure out a time and day for sure.
No, thank you so much, Paul. And yeah, and everybody go watch The Thaw. Sean and Sarah made a beautiful film, and uh, yeah, and leave nice comments in the comment section.
Right? Yes, and I will second that. Please go check out The Thaw if you have not. Just give yourself 17 minutes free, put some popcorn and soda pop on or something, whatever you want to use, and then just have fun with it. And then,
Definitely.
yeah, and then for everybody else, well, you know the drill. Keep your eyes open because you just never know if an apparition will appear in front of you. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Haunted Vermont podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and joining us tonight is another special guest from the short horror film The THAW, which was written, directed, I believe, by Sean and Sarah, and Sean Temple, and then, oh man, I'm brain farting on Sarah's last name, Wisner?
Wisner. I think it's Wisner.
Wisner. Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, sure. That random voice that you just heard pop in is none other than our special guest tonight, Jeffrey Grover. Jeffrey, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me here. This is great.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your time. And just for this conversation, do you prefer Jeffrey or Jeff?
You know, my professional name is Jeffrey, but I don't know. Jeff was always what I was, when people were like, when I was in trouble, I would be Jeff. So, you know, Jeffrey is a little more mellifluous. So let's go with Jeffrey. I like that.
All right. We'll stick to that then, that format. So anyway, Jeffrey, for those that may not know you and your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, especially like, you know, as you were growing up? You know, how did you want to decide to become an actor and, you know, want to appear in, I'm assuming, every type of genre? Because I kind of looked at your profile a little bit and it looked like you bounced around between some genres.
Yeah, well, those are two questions. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I wasn't really geared toward, actually I was. I used to like to, I think our first we did a little film in ninth grade for The Odyssey, I think. And I remember I was sort of intrigued by that medium, but then I threw it away. And then on camera work, in 10th and 11th, I got involved with I guess it was the high school the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. It was an honors program for high school students in terms of television production. And I was like, wow, I really like this medium. And then did a play or two, and then went to Michigan, University of Michigan, started out doing plays. And then I got in the radio station, and I was like that disc jockey. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, in the 70s, I wanted to play rock and roll and music and, you know, do the stuff that people do. And I thought that was really a great way to meet people. And, you know, all that stuff being said, it was like it ultimately led toward doing film. And that actually kind of emanated going into the next 2 or 3 decades. Sort of put it in abeyance, and then came back after having my first child in 1983. I sort of pushed away from doing any performance-based work because it was really hard to make a living, and just started getting back to it in the late 90s. And then I think the first film I was ever actually involved in was in 2003 or 2. And I was actually played a torso murderer in a film called Kingsbury Run, which thankfully really hasn't seen the light of day. But for some reason they thought I would make a good serial killer. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And that was fun and sexy in a lot of ways and crazily eerie. But as I leaned into it, that was 60 films ago or more, I started to really gravitate toward using my stage background and training, which I still do quite extensively here in New York and regionally, to really understand how to do a very good character work and prep. And I love being versatile. Thank you for lifting up the fact that you've looked at some of my stuff. I mean, my recent highlight film. I'm in a film that is opening in the next week or so. That is kind of fun, called The Alto Nights, that Robert De Niro is in, and Robert Levinson, Barry Levinson directed. I play a judge that actually has a fun scene. I hope it makes the cutting room floor, where I sentenced Vito Genovese, who was De Niro's character, Judge Leibowitz, and it was just this week, the last couple of weeks, in the Marvel Daredevil Born Again, and also an episode of Elsbeth. Because I'm in New York, so I get to do even co-star and guest star roles and things. So it's hard, though. It's very competitive. And doing the THAW, which is really what we're here to talk about, was the first time I'd honestly ever done a horror genre. It wasn't something I was necessarily even thought it was appropriate for. In fact, when I was talking to Sean and Sarah, whom you mentioned wrote and directed the film, this is pre-COVID. I think it came up through Backstage, maybe, and I don't know if I reached out to them or vice versa, but we had a discussion in September. I'm going back now to 2019. That's 5 years ago, right? And I did a read. I put a self-tape on, and sort of was like this character Timothy up in this area in Vermont. Like, what is this, and what's this folk tale? And no, I was not familiar with the folk tale before, about what had gone on with this, which is based on, as we'll talk about, I'm sure. But I read for them, and then we had a back and forth and an interview, a Zoom interview, and they cast me, you know. So I said to them, "Why are you casting me?" And they're like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" I said, "I mean, I don't understand. Why would you cast me in this?" And they were laughing. They said, "That's really a strange thing for an actor to say when we're offering a role." And I said, "Well, obviously I want to do it, but I am kind of curious." And it's funny. You should never, as an actor, type yourself or put yourself into a mode of, well, I'm the upper class guy that, you know, the guy that looks like a billionaire, which I just played on Elsbeth, right? I know that's the groove, but that's really, it's everybody. I don't care if you're straight-laced or you're Timothy, or if you're playing somebody that's the man in the sleeping bag, so to speak. They're all characters, and they all have to bring something from yourself to it. So I loved doing this film. And you probably have a question to ask, so I'll shut up. But that sort of leads to the whole point about why we're talking today, which is what this movie, The THAW, has in it that was so appealing from the onset with Sean and Sarah and their team, and then ultimately with Emily, you know, with our performers, and you know, just you've already, I think, interviewed her, but just, you know, everybody that was participating in this project really had their game face on. So it had to be successful. It had to be. And Toby, of course, Poser. I didn't mean to not mention her. The three of us.
Yeah, Toby Poser, who I forget the character's name that she played, but I know she was basically the mother. Not Ruth, because that was Emily. So, and you were That's playing right. Timothy,
right?
Timothy, yeah. I should look that up real quick. But yeah, you know, so you were talking about that serial killer movie that you said never had made it to the light of day. I'm now curious. Did they ever say why they didn't want to release it?
Well, it was in an independently produced film, and as are many. I mean, obviously, the majority of projects these days, and the much heralded independent film that actually even took an Oscar or two this year, which is great. This particular project I'm going back 20 or so years. I think it was just a matter of being able to find an audience for it, and I think they tested it. And it just, I think the quality of the project, I mean, it might have had the Blair Witch Project that kind of lower end kind of production values. And 20 or so years ago, you could get away with it. But I think for a number of reasons, it just didn't muster what a distributor would have needed. Although I will say, the acting, it was pretty intriguing, and it's a true story. In the 1930s in Cleveland, there were, I think, 13 unsolved murderers where the torsos that were dismembered. And Eliot Ness, who was involved, as you recall, with the Untouchables, if you were old enough to know that, not that I was around when Eliot Ness was around, but going after Al Capone, and who's ubiquitous in the crime lore. This torso murderer in Cleveland, literally, those murders were never solved, ever. And if you check it out, if your listeners check out the torso murders in Cleveland, they'll find a bevy of information, and it's fascinating. And also, it was consternation to Eliot Ness. He could never solve that crime. Imagine, here I am playing this guy that basically, sexy guy, sort of, I mean, I guess 20 years ago I was, could kind of seduce people, from all shapes and forms. And once getting them in his midst, in his grasp, found a way to end their lives in very, let's say, very red and bloody ways. But it was dark, and it was something I didn't know if I really wanted to ever just jump into doing again in terms of a horror film. That's why I stayed away from it. Even watching movies like Hostel, Hostel. I mean, that movie freaked me out when I saw that. And there's stuff like that I just was like, I don't know. Which is why this film, THAW, I think is much more of I feel it's like a kind of like an art film as opposed to something that's just a slasher film. It has so much nuance in spite of the nature of what, if you've watched the film. But it's really a psychological study, and built out of I think, a very significant part of Vermont folklore, and a very real issue associated with what you do in a subsistence farm where the harvest doesn't come in. What do you do if there's famine? What do you do with climate change? And how does that then narrow down granularly to these three people in this roughshod little farm up in upstate Vermont in the middle of winter, where you're not sure how you're going to be able to even get some wood together to burn fire, then much less a sheep or grain or whatever the stuffs were and the foodstuffs were that were left in the cellar. Really was compelling, really compelling.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the torso murders. I want to say there's been a lot of TV shows based on that, and yeah, Al Capone was like right on the target of the most prime suspect. Really, if I remember correctly, he was like just questioned by everybody, and I don't remember all the details, so I'll just stop from there because I just don't want to get it wrong. But I do think all I'll say is I think he didn't really answer them in the way they wanted. I think it would be the best way. I'm just going to end that topic. But anyway, yes, you were right. It is fascinating nonetheless. So to continue on about the THAW, which you just mentioned,
Sure.
No, you have not heard about it beforehand. And you are correct, though. I did interview Emily already, who played Ruth, and she had no idea about it either. So, and like I told her, and I'll tell you, Jeffrey, that depending on people in Vermont, it can go either way. You got the people that think it's an overrated legend now, because a lot of people are now talking about it again. And then you got people that have no idea that such a legend existed. So it's really interesting to find those kind of people where it's their first time hearing about it. And then now, since you guys all created this film based around it, I think it's a perfect example to bring it to life where it just enough detail to basically say, so this is pretty much the legend in a nutshell without the horror aspect, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, moving forward, what you kind of explained a little bit with the THAW of like meeting up with Sean and Sarah, how they basically chose you. So I guess when it came down to finally shooting, you know, so it sounds like you were saying too, you were staying away from the horror genre. So in this aspect, when it came to doing this role, Jeffrey, were there any challenging moments, whether it be physically or mentally, especially probably mentally, of preparing yourself for such a role as Tim?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very good question. And, there's both the mental, there's the physical demands because it was cold. And I mean, it was not cold all the time. If you saw the film, there was, quote, one day there was a thaw that enabled the film to actually you started to see the ice melt, snow. But other days it was like a 10 degrees with a wind chill that had to be below zero. And for me, I'm in my 60s and, I don't run around after people in the snow and the ice all the time. And especially, even though that wasn't a real axe, I don't mean to be a spoiler. There was an axe, but we replaced it with something that wasn't. If Emily's character possibly, maybe accidentally killed Timothy. Jeffrey doesn't want to die. I want to live another day, but the character does, as you probably noticed. But I think the physical demands, to answer your question, it was wonderful in a sense because it was really, we always talk in acting. I'm in a studio here in New York City called the Freeman Studio. And Scott Freeman, who runs it, most of us we all work. And I mean, we take our craft seriously and you're always trying to get, work to expand our skill sets, no matter how many years we're doing it. But he always will say, if you have an issue that you can't relate or something, make it the character's problem. And I was like, okay, this is friggin' cold, and I'm not used to this. I'm used to being, even in New York City in the winter is cold, but it's not this cold. And I'm not even wearing stuff that's really that warm because Timothy just got out of this, essentially this casket and is running around, trying to eat a sheep. It was friggin' cold. So I just sort of made it my character's problem, Timothy's, which is, okay, but he's not feeling it because he's ravenous. So how do I fight the cold and focus in on satisfying this need to survive? And that was the physical part. The mental part, which was as follows, was really sort of some ways easy to lean into and some ways hard. Having had significant others in my life who I care about, children, myself, I have 4 kids, a couple grandchildren. You would do whatever you could for them. So it's totally plausible that Timothy at the front end of the film would say, I will take the potion, and to my wife and my daughter, and you guys, you survive and take care. And, if anybody's going to be at risk, if this potion doesn't work, we don't know, then I'll let me be the one. And they're like, no, my wife and this Toby Poser's character says, no, we're going to do this together. And our daughter, Emily, whom you've already interviewed, Ruth will look after us. So it was easy to lean into that role of being a father, a husband, a person who's proud and not going to have somebody else take the gas pipe, if you will. In this case, with this situation where we were just literally going to become easily malnourished as time went into the winter. So that part wasn't hard. What was hard, and I'll be candid with you, I have animals. I have 2 cats. I've raised dogs. I mean, I would never hurt an animal. The idea of killing Rennie the sheep and eating it was a little bit odd, but again, that wasn't so much the through line in terms of what you were asking. It was more how one could transform, not deliberately, but into becoming an actual beast. My character, I would characterize him, not only to, so to speak, eat an animal, the pet, my daughter's pet, her only possession, which is clear, but also to attack or be willing to attack her, as we saw the film arc. And also, if you watch the cellar scene where he comes down and he says, "Ruth," and he sees her down in the cellar, you can't give a man a child, you can't, whatever it was. And it was like very hard to do in a sense, because I have a daughter. I have 3 sons and a daughter. I couldn't imagine, even in my most delirious moments, ever attacking and possibly abusing her. Not that it was, but there was a definite implication that he was getting very physical with his daughter, as you saw. That was hard. And I think the thing, though, that I actually found liberating, it's kind of like when you go to a Halloween, when we're kids, right? We get to dress up, which is what we do when we're acting. We get to wear costumes and stuff. You get to play. It's fun. It's just a game. It's just a play. It's not real. It's important that we treat it as real. We're not saying or commenting on it. It is real. And Timothy is going through the state where that's all he could do to try, and he's still trying desperately underneath to save his family. He wants to survive to save his family, even at the end of the film. But he just can't at this point manifest it because he's overwhelmed by hunger, and now his brain is addled, and he's literally, because he took the potion, you saw the way that he slurped that soup, which is very fun too. That was crazy good. And then going after her in the snow, which was really cold. That stuff kind of happened. I think the more we did it, and the more we trusted each other as an ensemble, and we did, and Sean and Sarah created this with our team. The DP was amazing. Everybody. We were safe, and we could play, which salved a lot of that worry or concern about, am I a bad guy? Will people judge me or like me? I don't care. I hope you hate me. I don't care what you think of me. I mean, honestly, from a character perspective, if I'm on stage or in a film, I don't care if you like me or hate me. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm being truthful, honoring the script, and being there with my scene partners. And that's what I think we did. That's a long-ass answer to your question. I apologize. But I'm sitting here looking out at the Hudson River from my apartment, and I'm thinking, I could say whatever I want, because you're going to edit it anyway.
Well, I actually enjoyed that answer, to be honest with you. And since we're talking spoilers and stuff a little bit of what's going on with your character, so when I first watched the film, I was under the impression that because of the fact that it was an early wake for you, because either the recipe was, that's, as I remember correctly, that seemed to have been the case. It was almost like, speaking of which, Toby's character's name was Alma, and we had Rennie, Sid the sheep, I think. Or Sid the sheep was playing Rennie, is what I should say. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, Rennie, the actor was, the sheep's real name was Rennie. But you're right. Or Sid, the sheep, and then the character's name was Rennie. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Sid the sheep is the actual real name. Rennie is the sheep character. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you straightened that out.
Yeah. I kind of was looking at it backwards, but yeah. So again, Toby Poser's character was Alma. So now we're sort of back on track. But yeah. So anyway, when I first was watching this and saw that you guys kind of woke up early, and you had this, like you were saying, this beast form basically going right after Sid or Rennie. We'll just say Rennie just because of the tail here, but you went right after Rennie, and when you started to eat them raw basically and stuff like that, I took it as, well, So now I'm trying to remember. I don't think the film really clarified, but I could be wrong. But you guys basically were asleep. You guys woke up early. We don't really know how long it's been, for amount of days. So on this particular point, I took it as you guys are starving. Rennie apparently was just right there looking good, unfortunately. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think this was right before, uh, Emily's character as well as Toby's character, were discussing about the recipe and the soup right before you kind of, gluttoned yourself with the soup, as I may say it like that.
That's
You
right.
definitely were gulping down that soup pretty good. Uh,
That's true.
yeah. So that's the way I took it. It was like you. It wasn't really you per se because you were literally trying to just make the hunger go away, the starvation in this case. But
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I
and
could.
you're right on the money. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, the thaw. If you think about what happened, I mean, we never really talked about it, but it's implied, or I inferred, because there was a quote early thaw. It kind of came about early. It unfroze us in part, and then the next question is because I accuse Emily's character, her character, Ruth, of doing it wrong. You did it wrong. You did it wrong. And she's, no, I follow what Mom said. I follow. Well, you did it wrong. And then he's like, and you did it to me, and you did it to your mother, and later it evolves into saying, you're trying to kill your mother. You're trying to kill your, whatever I said, toward the end of the film. I think what happened though, the two things, I think the thaw, maybe the recipe that they used was correct. Maybe it wasn't, but they did not anticipate in the middle of winter for it to thaw. And as a result, it's like, unthawing something. And of course, you know what happens. You unthaw something. If you unthaw soup that's in your freezer or your power goes out and everything, that's why we have to throw out everything out of our freezers and our refrigerators. I think that's
Mhm.
kind of what happened. And yeah, I think, must have been in the wrong place at the right time or the right place at the wrong time. Poor Rennie was not in the right place. And that was unfortunate for Rennie. But, I mean, it was great for Timothy. It was nice. It was a nice meal. But, it's like, that was gross. But we, of course, of course, Emily got to put that fur coat around me saying, oh, geez, you just killed my sheep. Like, let's get you inside and get you warmed up. I thought there's some humor in there's got to be humor. Even in tragedy, there's got to be humor. There is some humor. And I know, although I've never seen the film live with anybody, which I'm going to go to Nighthawk on April 3rd here in Brooklyn. It's part of Nighthawk. And I'm going to actually see it with an audience because I know there's like, people laugh at some of this. Like when he comes after her with the axe, it's like, this is like, it is kind of funny in a sense. It's because it's like, what the hell's going on here? You mentioned that soup, oh my God. We were so close to, I said to Sean and Sarah, I said, cause I wanted to do something for Emily. When as Ruth, I said, do you mind if I just really go after this? I just have this idea. I just have to go for something. And they said, sure. Because it said in the script something like Timothy eats this, couple sips of the soup or whatever. Something along those lines, but not this big meal. I stuck my head in that friggin' bowl and I literally, like, how you waterboard yourself? I just did everything I could to suck all of that up. And it was crazy. And when I took my head out of it, it was like almost like putting your head in and it gets all like literally wet with the soup. And then looking at her and it's like, oh my God, because I thought that would freak the hell out of her. And she runs out. That was really shot in real time. That was crazy fun. They tracked us. They didn't reset. They were really tracking us, I think. And it's why it seems so visceral and real. And also when she and I were eating the potato, there's a scene where we're sitting around having a potato. If you remember that scene, if you don't, you should watch it, because I took that whole damn potato, I put that whole thing in my mouth and swallowed that thing. I put that whole potato in because I figured I'm going to go for this. And I was like chomping on this thing. I thought, wait a minute, this isn't easy to swallow. Because it's like, oh, I could choke on this. But a lot of the stuff, if people watch that film, this is no BS. This stuff happened, and we did it to enable it to be as genuine and as in the moment as possible. And Sean and Sarah and our DP were gracious in terms of not saying, okay, cut, let's reset, let's do this again. They were really willing to let it roll, which is a gift to an actor. You know, if you feel like they're going to be able to provide something that could actually be used.
I love that, man. Not to interrupt you, Jeffrey. Sorry, but
I just reached it. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I love it when people give the actors or actresses the freedom that, you know, hey, we'll try this out. If you like this better than, you know, what was, you know, written or whatever, maybe we can roll with it. If not, then we can do it your way, kind of thing. But we'll try it out.
And that's what they did. And directors, I've really honestly worked with some really, I've been very fortunate, not necessarily playing a significant, but maybe a through line like this is, I would say, a good co-star to Emily. I mean, Emily, you know, and Toby and I, but Emily really is the star of this thing. But we're you know, we got some stuff in there, some good stuff. But having worked with a number of directors, and I've had a chance in New York to work with people coming out of, you know, Columbia or particularly at NYU, their MFA thesis programs. These are really, really talented people. And honestly, at that level here, and also in some features, and like just the Barry Levinson thing recently, I mentioned the Alto Nights, but I can remember working with Jeff Nichols in Take Shelter, which was like 15 years ago, I don't know, 13. Jeff Nichols is just coming into his own, and Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain were there, and then Craig Zobel with Compliance at the Endowed, and Bill Camp. And it's like, and we had, and actually, just as an aside, for those people that actually care about this who are listening, if you ever watch Miles Ahead, which is directed by Don Cheadle, there's a scene in there, and he talked about this on the Charlie Rose show, who was ultimately kind of asked to leave the air in the mid-2000s to 2015, 16. But he talked about the scene where Miles Davis has a scene with this really cool scene where he's doing a Columbia recording studio session, and my character is like this kind of the conductor, and he's a historical character. I mean, that was actually pulled from a real experience. And if you watch the scene I'm in with him, it was all improvised. And the reason it was improvised is because something happened in the middle of the scene. This is with Gil Evans, my character, where I was literally off camera, and they'd reversed the shot, but I just hung in. It was 2 a.m. Why not? And he saw me. He's that good of a director. He was actually playing Miles Davis. He looks and says, "Hey, Gil, what do you think, Gil? What do you think?" He asks me a question. I'm not in the scene. And I said, well, if the third trumpet played the D as a D flat as opposed to a D, or D as opposed to a D flat, I think we might have it. Come over to the piano. Show me what you mean. And I sat down. I mean, this is all true. These things came out of, and even I Feel Pretty, which we did, which is the Amy Schumer. If you watch this stuff, I've been in like 4 films where stuff was totally, like stuff was improvised. And it was because the director, and these are features with, you know, these are relatively important films. These are all important, where the directors are so secure that they just say, well, we got it. Let's see what happens here. And if you keep going, because until they say cut, you keep going. It's a gift. And you know you have the trust of the director and also the other actors. So it's like being on improv, you know, it's crazy good. And some people don't like improv. They want to play between the lines. They have to know everything. They have to predict it. But I like thinking, I have no idea what's going to happen, even when I do. And I think that's what Sean Temple and Sarah Wisner did in this case, and with the DP, who was locked right in with them. As you know, DPs have to be locked and loaded with the directors. They've got to be connected at the hip. And
Right.
I've seen this work, and they did this. And I'm giving them a shout out because they're extraordinarily humble. I mean, truly brilliant writers, director. They are only at the beginning of what will be an extraordinary career if they are given the opportunity, which they should be. And I can tell you, I know talent when I'm with it, and I know talent when I'm not. And they are talented, and they put together a great friggin' cast, which was, and the production team, the producer, everybody. It's a damn good film. Don't you think it's a good film? I mean, you see a lot of films, man. I mean, seriously, isn't The THAW a really cool film?
I loved the film. I loved it, man. I don't know if you read my little review of this film, but basically I kind of quoted it. One of the headlines I gave it was basically, let me find it real quick so I don't screw it up really. I said, it's nice to see Vermont legend finally making a bold statement within a different genre. Because I just loved it. And I kind of just went into why I felt like it was a bold statement, because as you're from Ohio, you got a lot of ghostly tales and legends and stuff yourself, but how do you learn about that? You find it in books. Nowadays sometimes you'll get some legends about states every now and then, but when you get something like this, like a local legend, and it's turning it into a short film, that's definitely different than a textbook, which is nice, because now not only are you just reading it, trying to visually see the story in your head by reading the pages, now you actually have a visual to go by to kind of let that be your imagination, or what would be the imagination, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, it does. And some people are more visual. Some people do a lot of audiobooks, and I think it just depends how you learn. And I think this, yes, I think you're right. I don't know what kind of lore. I did read it. I mean, they provided us some dramaturgical stuff, just for background on this, what this is based on. But the whole concept of it, taking it to the next level and imagining, okay, what if? And then if you think about, I think anybody today, I mean, I'm not going to, go political here. I mean, I think you could probably determine that I probably am not a big lover of the current regime. Let's call it that. So just be it as it may. I'm not ashamed of it, but I'm also willing to understand why people are. But regardless, I also think that apologetic, this BS where people think climate change isn't real, it's insane. I was in a film with Mark Ruffalo that Todd Haynes directed called Dark Waters, and it was about PFAS, and that's in it's a carcinogen. It's in 99.8% of us in the United States population, because it came out of this PFCs, this stuff, the PFP that came out of product that DuPont and 3M were creating a chemical to make Teflon, which everybody knows has been around since pre-World War II. It coats surfaces, keeps it slick, right? Teflon pans, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And people were like, well, yeah, I get it. And this guy sued, Ruffalo's character sued, and he, whatever. But, I mean, come on. I mean, really, does that really cause an issue? Or does what goes on up in Flint, Michigan cause issues with paint and lead and water? I mean, really? Yeah, it does. And this stuff with the film with the THAW was really built apart. Like, you'd have to ask yourself if you're watching the film, because it took it into today. what might happen? Why, even in the late 19th century Vermont, was there already evidence of climate change? Was there some evidence that the winters wouldn't last the way they should? Because this is what really, you asked the question about renting the sheep. Why did they wake up early? It wasn't because the potion was bad or good. Maybe it was. Who knows? Bad or good. It was because it got too hot too soon. And then, of course, you're going to start to, it's like your meat getting unfrozen, unthawed. It's like, oh, doggone it, how did that happen? Well, Timothy, unfortunately, well, they just got a little warm, a little too soon, if you will. But I don't know why I started talking about that. I got political. I apologize. Sorry.
No, it's all
okay.
No, but that's a good way of looking at it, though. I mean, in a way, it could be both. It could have been the potion besides the weather. I mean, maybe the weather wasn't quite necessarily the right temperature to, quote, wake up. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe it could have been both. I mean, that's the fun of the imagination, in my own opinion. But we don't even...
And you're right.
Yeah. And
go ahead. No, you're saying we don't even. I apologize. I cut you off.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't even know, like, what the recipe even is. Because, I mean, as far as the legend really goes, is that, like, there's supposedly a diary or some sort of journal, but we also know about this guy that was invited to go up to wherever this took place in Vermont. Some people say it was like some western part, I believe, but they didn't really specifically give a town as far as I'm aware. But anyway, they basically, anytime you read this legend, it basically just said there's a recipe and that there's a ritual, basically, and then it kind of just goes into when this guy visited, he pretty much just observed what happened, what pretty much took place, which was he arrived there, he saw the preparation, which was like they drank something to basically just have him going, as Emily called it, a coma. At the time, I called it paralyzed because I couldn't really quite think of it. Like, I guess in a way it is a coma. But anyway, to get back on track, but then he talked about the preparation of the board. So you get this board, which is like, I'll just say 10 by 8. That's probably wrong, but just for the sake here of this. But basically, you're looking at a board that can only fit like one person, sometimes two if you lay them on top of each other, which apparently happened in this case, according to the legend. So basically, they make the board so that they can stack bodies on top of each other, basically, to help keep them warm. Yeah.
I got it.
And then they use straw for the bedding. Then they kind of wrap them in some cloth, but they basically don't have them wear anything to, quote, keep them warm. So it's just pretty much you're exposed. But in order to keep the body safe, that's why they put you in the board. And then after it is all said and done, they close it up with the final board. And then you're basically just safe from predators and the environment or exposure and stuff like that until spring comes, and that's when you're supposed to get thawed out. But that's when the guy that was recording all this came back to witness the thawing out, which he basically says, oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this when I was talking with Emily, so I'll do it right now for anybody listening that is curious. As far as my knowledge goes, this is the earliest works of the hibernation ritual stuff that's going on that is all about the Vermont frozen folk. And it's a book called Winter in Vermont. It is by Charles Edward Crane. There's a whole section chapter on it. So that's pretty much where it comes from. But yeah, that's basically it really there, Jeffrey. Basically, he just gets there when it's spring. They basically unbolt the top and they bring the bodies in by the fire with food ready for them. And they basically just start uh, showing signs of life again, as the guy puts it. And they eat their food like really nothing really happened from the sound of it. So it really is a crazy legend.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting concept. I mean, we grew up as a Yogi Bear. I mean, bears, hibernate, and it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Why not? Um, I think, I think the thaw. The reason I'm intrigued by it, and I'm not from Vermont. However, I do know that we all have legends, or we have supernatural things that happen, or ghosts. I even talk to people about, different things, like they think there's a presence of someone in a room. Somebody I was actually with last night said that they had been in a situation where they were talking to a person that's like a person who talks to the dead. I don't know what we call
a medium.
Yeah, medium. And I said, well, I don't know about that. And they said to me, well, their father, literally, this person said to me, they heard their father speak to them in their left ear, right in that room. And the medium looked at this person, at this friend of mine, and said, your father is in the room, and he's speaking to you in your left ear. And she's like, what? And she literally, my friend, she, I guess, was like, she heard her father tell her something specifically that she was trying to figure out how to solve a problem. And she said, because I was speaking about this, and she said, no, I buy into it. I've had situations in my own life happen where I don't know if it's maybe the randomness of coincidence, but I'll give you an example. Yesterday, a friend of mine's in from LA. I was in a show with a number of years ago, and said, hey, let's get together, let's have lunch while you're in New York. Now, you've been in New York City, right? It's a big city.
Yeah.
And it's random you run into people. And I've had this happen to me. I ran into this guy. We had lunch last week. I ran into him not once, but twice. Literally. Once on Sunday and then on Tuesday. Totally random walking into them in the city. And that's really weird, because I don't even know where my friend Steve hangs. He's on the east side somewhere. I'm on the west side. I'm right near the river. It's so bizarre to think I would have been anywhere close to where this dude was hanging out. I literally saw him and he looked at me. He said, Jeff, it's really, really unusual and not likely. Just the randomness of it. And I do think that there's what we call it in acting is the suspension of disbelief. An audience has to go. They're going to see a play, or they're going to see the THAW on Alter. I guess it's on Alter, right? Or they could see it in the movie theater, and they could say, "Okay, it's a movie. I know. I'm looking at my iPhone, or I'm looking at my laptop, or I'm using it on my streaming. It's not real." Well, yeah, no kidding. And if it's a play, it's like, no, we know this isn't actually when Hamlet, when this happens, when these bad things happen, or the father's killed, or the ghost comes. But is it real? Because it's obviously built, like Shakespeare really drew, on so much having to do with ghosts and the supernatural. The witches in the Scottish play, for example, Macbeth. That's not drawn from some guy drinking sack in the middle of the night in medieval England. This is coming from legend. So I think it's just a matter of how we choose to actualize it. And I think just the stuff this week with just randomly running into somebody twice. Is it coincidence? Or is there something else? And do we sometimes have these moments where the possibility could be there that these things that are lore are actually built on something that's much more formidable and real? And I don't, and this is the last comment I want to make on this. Oh, do you mind? I mean, actors always say, well, let me tell you what I was in. You know, it's like, come on, shut the hell up. We don't want to hear that. But I do have to tell you this. I was doing a wrestling, I'll leave the network, USA Network, but I'll leave the show nameless. But I played this character in this very well-watched professional wrestling show. And I had no idea what it was. I just booked it. This is like 15 or so years ago. And one of my kids said, Dad, that's a big show. I mean, that's a big show. So I don't even know what to say. It's professional wrestling. And come on, it's all bullshit. And we were told before we started, they said to us, because we were there with this is real stuff too. These wrestlers are really, I'll say it, it's all real, okay? It's all real. I'll still say it today, it's all real. But they said to us, it's something very, very telling about the THAW. They said, you know, if you ever start to try to make a comment on this while you're portraying your character, okay, like this is not real, this is all BS, right? And he said, there are 20,000 people in that arena who are here because they want to believe it. Whether it's true or not, if you don't believe it, they won't. They want to believe. For the hour or 2 or 3 hours we give them, they want to believe. So I realized my objective, my goal, it's like playing a baseball game between the lines. Give me that 3 hours of respite from this world. Let me go see a professional or a minor league baseball game, college game. Let me see a high school game. Let me see Little League. Give me that time. Don't make fun of the audience wanting to just go for it. They need a release. And it's sometimes just, you need the release. So I think the THAW, I think we really stayed true to it. And I never, ever, ever, ever felt like I wasn't finding an organic connection to Timothy. But that's also because, honestly, Toby and Emily didn't. They were connected totally. There was no question. None of us was making fun of it, or anybody who would choose to want to go along for the ride. I really appreciate the fact that audiences have gone along for the ride. Now, they might not know that I'm not a horror person. Toby and Emily are, as you know. This was maybe my first, second rodeo in it, but this isn't what I do all the time. I'd love to do it again though, because I think it was great fun. And I don't think it was for not only for just the fulfillment of doing it with great people, but actually to honor a tradition and be in the environment where you were given the gift of being in Vermont, in the cold, in this 18th century house they found. That house is a vintage 18th century house. It was like being in an actor's heaven. It was really amazing. I have fond memories of that, doing it. I really do. I really love just so indebted to them for, saying, yeah, you should be in this. It was good.
No, I agree with you, Jeffrey. I mean, even the quote where you said, if you don't believe in it, they're not going to believe in it. That is, I back that 100%. If you're not going to give your all to make it feel alive and real, then nobody's going to buy it. And, as for your story there, bumping into this person twice, Sunday and on a Tuesday, that is very interesting. It makes me sort of wonder what was going on with that, but, I'm just trying to figure out how I would even, I don't want to say portray that, but, the word that I'm probably trying to use is escaping me right now, so I apologize at the moment, but, yeah, that is bizarre, especially New York City. I mean, there's tons of people that walk those streets, and the fact that you're running into this guy not once but twice, that's just wow. That is really interesting, crazy, however you want to call it. Ironic, coincidence, superstition. I mean, I guess you could always start labeling like that, but as for the medium aspect, I mean, that stuff, it's like a hit and miss with me, but depending on who it is, I guess, and what's going on in the environment. Otherwise, I would say it is very possible that there is people that can talk to the dead like that, and I don't want to deny it or not deny, but I mean, it's just a matter of who it is and the environment. In my own personal take, I've never really done like a medium, psychic type reading thing before or anything like that. But I mean, maybe one day somebody will reach out to me and say something that only I should know. And then, then maybe I can start scratching my head like, maybe there is something to this. And I mean, there gotta be, if people have that ability per se, but that's all I'm going to say about that. For some reason though, I want to go back to the food aspect for a minute. So I'm just curious there, Jeffrey, as a couple things. When it came down to, you talking about eating the potato and the soup. Now, when it came to those two scenes per se of you, say like when you're all you're eating the potato whole or trying to, and then you got yourself indulging with the soup. When it actually came down to that, like when it came to like the actual food preparation, like, was it actually like, I'm assuming so, obviously, because otherwise you would be choking. Like it sounds like you almost were with that potato because you but anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is like do you remember, did they make the food before that scene prior? Like how did that even work when it came to trying to film that scene? Did it like multiple takes or whatever? And then I guess finally, just what I'm curious about with the soup is, like, was it actually legit soup, or like for all of you guys per se, or like how did that kind of come into play?
Yeah. Well, I think with the potato, because it was supposed to be cooked. I mean, you can't eat a raw potato, so
right.
I mean, they were so that. I mean, in a sense, they would have boiled it, and so it wasn't like it was in a microwave. So it was, relatively edible, but more so the way you would normally eat a baked potato. It's not like it's like, like coming like oozing like butter. It's got substance to it, right? So I just chose instead of just taking a bite of it at a time, like you could take it in your hand and like a half of it, or I took hers too. And because my goal was, I'm going to eat it before you are, because it's a selfish act, but it's like I'm this starving. I have to eat it. So I just said, how am I best going to get it without it being taken away from me? Is put it in my mouth all at once because I'm so hungry. And then, so it was sort of cooked, but not fully. So, and it wasn't hot. It didn't burn my mouth, but we had let it cool a bit. And I think because it had cooled a bit, it started to, how it gets a little bit hard. How
yes.
a potato starts to get, well, so it was good that it wasn't hot. On the other hand, it wasn't good because it didn't sort of come apart as easily. So it got kind of stuck in my throat. I was trying to bite it down and try to do it as I was going. It was really quite fun, actually. I've never done anything like that before. But I do remember it was sort of medium hard. And I would definitely, please recommend to your audience not to do that. That's not a good way to eat a potato. Don't do it. You'll choke. It's not good. Not a good thing to do. The other thing with the soup, I think it was just, it had some herbs in it, I think. It wasn't really soup at all. It was like water with heated a bit, maybe above, maybe 110, maybe above room temperature, but not hot. But it had some herbs in it and some stuff that would have been in there to sort of simulate what could have been the soup. But it was the thing for me was it was fun because there was enough in there, and I was like, hey, let's not just have like a little bit. I don't want to fake this. I can't just slurp like an ounce of it. It's got to be a cup of that's got to be in there, right? At least a cup. You can't see it when you're watching it. You can't tell whether it's the thing is full or not. That they're cooking it in. She's cooking it in, but there was a generous amount in there. So I just said, I'm going to put my head in that and see if I could fit my head in that thing. Hopefully not get stuck, and go like really, really take a really good breath and just suck that up, and then just come out and it was snorting out of my mouth, my nose. It was great. But it wasn't, thank God it didn't have garlic or pepper or anything, because that would have been problematic. It was just relatively benign, but edible, not poisonous stuff.
I think that was probably one of the best scenes. I will say, I love that where when you're just stuffing your face in there. I'm like, oh, geez, like you definitely know he's hungry if he's doing that, you know.
I swear to you, I said to Sean and Sarah before, I said, I'm gonna do something. Is that okay? And by that time, we'd been doing it enough. After 2 or 3 or 4 days, they were like, yeah, go for it. So it was really fun. It was great. It was really fun. That's crazy. How can anybody have fun doing stuff like that? But it was no. If you watch that scene, it was really fun. It was really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's what creative freedom gives you, man. I mean, whatever you think of, I mean, you can just run with it when you have that ability, or the freedom, I should say. So that's always amazing to hear. So to kind of, I guess, wrap things up a little bit, Emily wanted me to sort of ask you this, and I was just like, well, I don't know if we want to ask it because of the whole, maybe it would be fun to just let it be left for the imagination, but she's kind of curious of, at the end there where you sort of disappear, so what was going on in that part, like near the end where you supposedly, like, I guess, disappear, where we kind of don't see you again, basically?
Right. Well, I think what happens is, and it's a good question. Like, I always wondered, like, if you watch it, and I'll ask people people who watch it. So Timothy's like running after Ruth, right, with the axe,
right,
and kind of accusing her of killing her mother. Tried to kill her own mother, and she's worthless, and she's this, and it was a really intense scene, actually, and she takes the axe out. So the question really is, did she nail Timothy with the axe? Did that do it? Or did he have some other reaction? And see, this is where I don't want to start to say, because you could make your own judgment. I've talked to people who think, oh, well, obviously she hit you with the axe. And I said, do you really think so? Like, did you see any evidence of that in it? Or maybe that is the case. Or was there something else that happened to him? Maybe it's like overdosing on a drug. He ate too much of that friggin' soup, that potion. It was way too much, and the whole point was, Pa, you're not supposed to have that much. Well, that's kind of like, what happens? He obviously, then he eats his own puke. It's pretty weird. It was pretty gross, right? But he dies. The dude's dead. So when he disappears, they're burning him in that. You can tell the burning of his body. In the end, that's what's going on, I think. So did he disappear? Yeah, he was put into a coffin, and then they burned the shit out of it, and then he's dead. I think that's what happened. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm just going to leave it just like that, Jeffrey. I love that answer. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. The imagination is a great thing, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So I know you shared some stories just a second ago, so we'll just scratch that question out of here, but maybe to elaborate just a little bit more. So what is your thoughts or opinions on the whole, like, paranormal thing? Maybe even, like, the whole cryptozoology thing, like Bigfoot, stuff like that. Do you sort of, like, believe, like, something like Bigfoot exists out there, or, like, they say we have Champ in Lake Champlain. Like, what's your opinion?
Yeah, Bigfoot's always been sort of intriguing to me. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Stonehenge, right? So how did
Stonehenge,
that
yep.
happen? How? You tell me. How do they build pyramids? How do they build, the in Jerusalem? How do they build these incredible structures and the engineering that the Incans and I'm talking about advanced cultures that also believed in worship of gods and animals, and cats were mummified in Egypt when the pharaohs or these people would die. They would be, unfortunately, it's wrong place, wrong time, kind of like Rennie the sheep. It's like, sorry, you're having a nice time outside lapping your cream, but the pharaoh just died, so we're going to kill you and put you in the tomb with him. Ah, doggone it! I wish I'd known that. I would have run away. I think these things, like you're asking about Bigfoot or Champlain or what have you, I think they're built. I think people want to believe in something that's like, we all like ghost stories when we're kids, and and the things and then they closed the door, and then there was a creaking sound, and we didn't know where it came from, and then suddenly it was like, like when we're kids, you tell those stories when you're having sleepovers with your friends. It's like, oh my God. Maybe it's that, but I think there's Bigfoot. To me, I always thought that was plausible, and I still think supernatural. I mean, if you look at stuff like I don't know, the Steven Spielbergs, if you look at E.T. or you look at some of the things, like, I always really loved the movie with Richard Dreyfuss where the towers, the Devil's Tower and all that stuff, like the idea of the not paranormal necessarily, but space travel. I think this stuff, I feel like this. I do think that we as as humans, as women, men, whatever we are, I'm not labeling. I think that let's just call us just human beings, people. I look at animals and I see that they have the ability to sense things because they're not riddled with our logic and intellect that tells us that what we're feeling and sensing isn't real, because of course it can't be. Why then do certain animals have premonitions about things? And I think that over time, we have sort of become doubters because we were told to doubt. I don't doubt anything can happen. So, Bigfoot, any of these things, I would never, ever suggest to anybody not to embrace a tale. I think it's important to know the difference between fact and fiction. But I would be arrogant if I said that these things, how would I know, just blanketly don't exist. I think that's insane. There's a small percentage that it could, but that's enough to say there's a percentage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you agree with that, or how do you feel?
So, this is the way I look at it. I think I even said it to Emily. It's like, they said, like, what was it? The platypus or something, or let me figure out something else as a better example. There's like, I think it was a specific gorilla or some sort of cat or cougar that they said that didn't exist, right? And then all of a sudden they found them, like, where nobody wanted to search, maybe because the terrain was too rough or too hard to hike through or climb or whatever. But, eventually we found that whatever, etc. I'm just going to say, because, there has been a lot of, quote, undiscovered species that said they weren't supposed to be existing, but now we actually found them and now they exist. So I'm in the same boat as you. It's like, why can they not be out there? But yet, because if people have seen them, then I'm not going to doubt that they have not seen them, especially when you talk to witnesses and they're shaking when they're trying to retell you what they saw. Um, excuse me. I just feel like it is very possible that something like that does wander the woods. I remember, the first time watching the Patterson Gimlin film, little film where we see Patty walking by, and I mean, I know everybody trying to say that's somebody in a suit or whatever, but when you really start paying attention, I kind of start to agree that there's no way in hell that can be somebody in a suit. It's just not physically impossible, especially with the way Patty walks as she, even turns her head and stuff like that. So I don't really think that, we are the only type of species, I guess would be a good way to look at it. Especially out in in space. I don't think we're the only living beings around. I think there's more, but we're just, unfortunately with the way everything is, I think they're just hush hush about it. They don't want us to really know everything, which again goes into don't always believe what you hear, see, and read or something like that.
Well, I think you're right. And in addition to that, there's dimensions. And I think that we're not trained to, how sometimes an artist will think of something and it's like, how did they come up with that song? Somebody was talking about how the Beatles, how Paul McCartney used to write his songs. And he said, I just woke up with it and it was there. How? Where did it come from? Then asking John Lennon, this is in a documentary on them, did we hear that as kids? No, never heard that before. Where did it come from? Woke up, he says, yeah, tune was there, melody was there, came into the studio, they recorded it that day. And where does this come from? And the talent, and where is it, what is it informed by? And I think dimensions-wise, I do feel oftentimes that those who, I don't buy the idea that people who are dead are gone fully. I understand physically, but I think the dimensions that we don't see are just because of our own limitations, frankly, not because we're stupid, we're just ignorant, or we choose not to think about it because it's not a thought we're really comfortable. It's like trying to think of infinity. Like, let me ask you a question. This will answer the question to summarize it. You asked me if I had any questions about supernatural, do I believe in it? When I was 6 years old, I was standing in front of a mirror in the front hall of my house. I was looking at myself, and it was reflecting back and forth, like there's like a mirror. I was just looking at myself, and I thought to myself, okay, it literally started to make me think, how did I get here? I mean, I obviously know, at 6, you don't really know the birds and the bees. So my thought process was, okay, if things are created from something, if a home is built from wood, or a car is built from steel, or food is made from seed, okay, all that stuff, where did it come from? And how did something get created, theoretically, from nothing? And what is nothing? Darkness, but is darkness the absence of light? And therefore, how did it get introduced? It's physical. It's, to me, the whole idea of infinity in the universe and the whole idea of existence, as a 6-year-old, was impossible. It was literally impossible, and I therefore summarized that I did not exist. So therefore, what I was looking at wasn't real. And I know this is weird, but I can remember standing there as a 6-year-old, and as clear as I'm saying it to you, I still to this day don't know how we're here. And I think because of that, I accept that we're here. I accept if somebody hits me in the face, that's real. It kind of hurts, maybe unless it's something else. Maybe we're just manipulated AI at this point. But I do think there's way too much, whether it's faith-based, and I'm not going there, or just science-based, or whatever the heck it is, just as people. If I said to you, I'm going to come over and I'm going to buy you a pizza, but I'm going to stand in front of you and I'm going to think it, and it's going to just go right in front of you, your mushroom pizza. You'd say you're out of your mind. You had Domino's deliver it. No, look, it came out of nothing. It's right there. Well, it's a great magic trick. So basically, the universe, the whole existence is a magic trick. Who made the trick? And therefore, are these dimensions, people, feelings, things walking around, the dead being with us, people, our past lives? Why do we have a predilection to be able to do interviews on podcasts? Why? Why? And I think that's what is so stunning about Twilight Zone and other shows that through the years have made, and Alfred Hitchcock and other things. It's just like, huh. And then you know what it is in a summary? It's humbling. If we ever get too high on our horse, it's very important to remain humble, because in the core, we bring nothing into this world and we take nothing with us. It's just about the day-to-day stuff, but at the core, we cannot think we know it all, and we cannot think that we're better than the next person and entitled to have something that somebody else shouldn't have. It's totally not consistent with being able to be, just do unto others. But I think about the question as to existential or what have you, but in terms of infinity, as a 6-year-old, I think that kind of informed why I'm always searching. And maybe in some ways, even though I'm pretty pragmatic, I always believe that running into somebody twice in New York City is insane. It's not, it's a possibility, but the odds of it are improbable. And I think, wait a minute, isn't that a validation that Bigfoot could be? Or Sasquatch or any of these things? I don't know.
That's a good way of looking at it, Jeffrey. Sorry. No. I am over here like nodding my head back and forth, because that was me when I was younger. It's like, what's going on? Like, what is this world? Who really created us? I sort of want these answers, but and I know we're not going to get them right now. But I know, when the time comes, we all will get our answers. But I mean, yeah. I was in that same thought process a long time ago, man. And even now, it's just like, when it comes to the different dimensions, it's like, well, how come this place over here is considered like a residual haunting, and then this over here, I can walk over here with just saying this is more intelligent, where the spirits actually interact with you. They know that we're here. Whereas I can go back outside down the block and it's just a recording over and over again. It's playing out whatever happened at that moment. And I don't know, man. But to answer another question that you sort of were saying is, with animals, how come they can sense things we can't? I think it's because us humans, we can't use that part of our brain. And I think animals can, just because they have that more higher sensitivity and stuff like that. So that's why I always feel like it's your dog or cat or whatever is looking at something, but you can't see something. You know damn well that they're seeing something, and then they're gonna react to it by, if they're showing no signs of fear, they're gonna have their hair standing up, they're gonna bark, meow, maybe hiss if it's a cat, all that and more. So it's almost like how we would react, depending on if it's a intruder in our home or a friend coming over. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah. So I fully love that answer there, Jeffrey. And so before I wrap up, where people can possibly find you and keep up to date with all your upcoming projects, Jeffrey, did I not give you a chance to talk about, or did I not ask anything that you think would be important about the THAW that I didn't really have a chance to ask you?
No, thank you for that. No, you've been very generous with your time and just going with the flow. I appreciate that, which I have a tendency to go off kilter a little bit, off center. No, I think I've said it. I really enjoyed it. Listen, I'm not running from festival to festival looking for people to, say it was a good job. I know it was good. I know it's a good film, but it had to be successful because look at who was involved. Look at the cast, and look at the team, and look at the writers, and look at everybody who's on the stuff that's the 100 people on a film that you don't normally give the right attention to. All of those people enable it. It had to be successful. Now, do I have anything to say about it? I think people should watch it. Do I think some people not like it? Yeah, I know some people don't like it. Some people don't like horror films. Some people, it's in black and white. It's like whatever. I don't really think that's the point of it. I think it's like, give yourself a chance to see a really well-made story. And whether you like it or not, you don't have to watch it again. But I don't know. I think we've covered it. From my viewpoint, in terms of those people that have an interest, every actor. It's funny. I heard who Paul Giamatti is, right? I assume
ring the bell. Ring the bell.
Okay, Paul Giamatti's had a great career, and he's was John Adams in the series, and he's been in many things. He's 57 now, I think, but he's the Academy Award nominee, if not a winner from the Holdovers from a year or two ago, shot in New England. Brilliant. I heard him speak last week at the acting studio I'm in, and he said, the thing I love about being an actor, and he's successful, he doesn't have to look for work. He was in Sideways. He's been in many films. You would know. He's ubiquitous. But he said, the thing I love about acting is I never know what's going to happen day to day. So I think for me, I never know what's going to happen. I don't. I could sort of think I do, but it's like running in my friend Steve. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to, maybe that audition that I hadn't heard of from in a couple months. Maybe the thing I thought, I'd tank that was horrible. And maybe they're going to say, that was amazing. Or maybe a film comes up because somebody saw a film that they liked and they said, that guy could do something I never saw him do before. So I think that's sort of where I would say to your audience, it's like, support independent film, support going to movie theaters. It's better to do that. I think looking on your iPhone or your laptop's fine. I think going and being around other human beings, maybe even animals, watching films is a really good thing. And from the viewpoint of how hard it is to make an independent film and get it to the light of day, it's very hard. The odds are low. It's time consuming. It's expensive. And then you put it all out there, and then at the end of the day, it gets rejected from film festivals and nobody ever knows about it. The THAW is something that has gone beyond most short films I've been in, truthfully. And I think it's deserving of attention. And as far as Jeffrey Grover, all people have to do is go to www.jeffreygrover.com. And that's my website. Or go on IMDb and just look up Jeffrey Grover. And you'll see the stuff I'm working on or in. And, in theater and other stuff. It's not all just film and television stuff. And that's not a brag. That's just like, hey, the agents have it. They use it. There's clips. There's reels. I mean, we all use submits. But in this world today, like I did something today for something I hope I'll book, it's like, great, we like you. You're good. But, okay, here's the side. Here's the content. Put a self-tape on along with 20 other people. There's no A-list actor you're talking to here. Emily's great. Toby's great. I think I'm okay. But we're not playing at the level that we would be if we were Richard Gere, okay, or Harrison Ford. It's just those are A-list people being paid $20 million a film, and they have hundreds of scripts offered to them. We're fortunate to work, honestly, and I'm just appreciative of having a chance to do stuff that's really with really good, talented, and above all, nice and kind people who get the idea of supporting each other. That is the real blessing of this. So, one hand washes another. If I can help anybody who's listening, you need some advice or thoughts, reach out. It's on my website. You can find it, or if you want to book me or cast me, give me a chance. I might surprise you. Or maybe they should make THAW the feature film. They should let Toby and they should let us play these characters in an 80 or 90-minute feature. That's what they should do, and let Sarah and Sean write it and direct it again with a couple $1 million budget or so. But yeah, come on, let's do it.
Perfect, Jeffrey. I love the answer. Yes, and I fully support indie creators, indie authors, indie whatever. Anything with the word indie or independent needs to be supported because, like you said, without the spotlight, that's just pretty much going to get swept under the rug, and you won't even know it exists out there, really, because it didn't get the attention it deserves, and everything deserves. And to tell you, like with Sean and Sarah, when they were ready to put this film out there, I mean, I know for a fact from seeing Sean post about it, he was nervous. And I think he totally was not expecting the outcome that he got, which was, like a really great audience for it, which a lot of people loved it. And from what I've heard, it's good intention. I haven't really seen too much of the people not really liking it, but I know people want to see more. So I think Sarah and Sean did a fantastic job, and I'd love to see them continue with maybe something else.
Yeah, and I'm sure I know they have scripts in them and projects. Very well trained. They have a following. People want to work with them. And I would imagine that projects will come to them, or they'll brainstorm, or somebody will engage them to, give them, some nice dollars to build a script. So they're not only working on the fly, on the spec, they have to be able to make a living. So,
right.
And that's important. People should recognize that. I think that's really the best way to summarize it is support independent film. The THAW is really cool. Hopefully there'll be others. Everybody, it's always what can you do for me today? What can I do for you today? You were great in that. Now what? And so it's always a matter of coming out with your best. And the last comment I'd make is, I think a lot of times the reason I love doing this work is, sometimes it's like if you're in a play and you perform it 8 times a week and you do it, for weeks on end, you think, well, God, that must get really boring, or doing 10 takes of the same scene or the beat that you got to pick up because the camera angle was wrong, or you blew it, you didn't hit your mark, or you looked into the camera, idiot, don't. Oh, gosh, everything else is perfect. Yeah, but we got to reshoot it. That can get mundane. It's 98% weighting, as you know, in film. It's 95% weighting and 5% on, and then you got to be on. It's just hard to do, but you got to be fresh. So the idea is, I always like it because I'm different today, right now at 7:30, talking to you on a Thursday night than I was at 7:30 a.m. this morning. I'm a different person because I had different things happen to me. Who knows? And I'm going to be different tomorrow. So every day you can bring something new, even if you're doing the same show 8 times a week or 10 takes of something. Moment to moment, you're a different person. So logically, it's going to always be fresh, if you don't fall into the habit of saying, yeah, I know the tricks, I could just do it the same way and get away with it because I look and I sound good. Well, that's very phony. And that's not being honest. So, yeah. So Sean and Sarah have stuff they can bring, and I say to everybody, have the THAW made into a feature and let them do it, and I'll be in it, and we'll have more fun. And then we could talk again.
I would love that, Jeffrey. And you know what? I'm going to counteract something to that for the closing statement, which is, as you were saying, like every day you're going to be you're going to wake up, you're going to be a different Jeffrey, basically. And I'm going to say every day we're basically acting on a stage every day. So
that's right. The whole world's a stage. I think Shakespeare might have said that, something like that.
Yeah, I want to say it's Shakespeare. Yeah, I'm telling you, Shakespeare knew what he was talking about. That's for sure. But again, Jeffrey, I want to thank you so much for your time. I love talking to you about the THAW, and I do hope that if we do see a full-length THAW or something later on down the road, I would love to definitely get you back on so we can talk more. And it was a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to your future works.
Thank you. And thanks for the time. I really appreciate you being so gracious. So I hope this all works out. I hope it's interesting for people to listen to.
Always, man. And for everybody out that is listening, like I always say, keep your eyes open because you just never know if an apparition will appear in front of you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Haunted Vermont podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and, well, if you thought I was done with the THAW, you were certainly dead wrong. So anyway, introducing tonight's guest is Toby Poser, who played Alma in the short horror film The THAW. So, Toby, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Paul. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, it is what it is, and I'm glad you were able to make time, and, we can chat about this lovely role that you ended up partaking and everything else, because, if I may say, I've watched it a few times now, and, it's great to see the magic of the Vermont legend come to life in a different way versus, being read,
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure I'll learn a lot just talking with you, too. I love hearing other people's perceptions of stories that I'm involved in. And also, I got to say, Vermont is a cool state. We all know that. So I'm lucky to be here.
Right? Yeah, for sure. And so, Toby, for those that may not know you per se, what else do you do besides acting? I guess what I'm trying to say for short is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I've been acting for, I was about to say centuries. I'm not that old, but I have been acting for a few decades. But about 15 years ago, I also started making films. And I guess the kind of interesting thing about my filmmaking is I make them with my family. So my husband and I and our two daughters, we just 15 years ago we decided to take off we bought an old RV and we took off for a year, hit the road, homeschooled the kids who were 6 and 11 at the time, and made our first film, and we just fell in love with it. A few years and 4 dramas later, we decided to move into making genre film. So now we've made several supernatural horror films, and that's where we really felt at home. And we're generally called the Addams family, even though I'm the poser in the bunch. We're called the Addams family in that community, and our company is called Wonder Wheel Productions. And some of the films we've made are The Deeper You Dig, Hellbender, Where the Devil Roams, and now we just finished a film called Mother of Flies. So that's what I've been up to.
Wow, that's a lot of handiwork, if I may say. So I know you almost said centuries, and I just want to make this weird comment, which is basically so. Are we talking did you also figure out the, how can I put this? in a way. You found the I guess the experiment of like, kind of like Elizabeth's battery. Like, you just get the virgin blood and bathe in it and then you just live for eternal.
Yes. Who doesn't know that trick, Paul?
I don't know.
Actually, the character I play, you know what? Maybe I'm still in character because the latest. So I do act in our films and most of them, and the character I play in the latest film, Mother of Flies, is a few centuries old. So and she's found her way back on Earth. So I think I just haven't sloughed off playing her yet.
Well, that's a good backup story. No, I'm joking. Perfect. Yeah, so Mother of Flies.
That's the newest. Yeah, we just finished, so we're just starting to figure out where we'll play at festivals and make its premiere, and hopefully be distributed. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. I'll have to try to do my best to keep my eye on it. So that sounds interesting. Anyway, so all I can think of is Lord of Flies. But well, speaking of Lord of Flies, is it like something like that in a way? I guess.
It's really, I guess, if you want to talk themes, it's a lot about life and death and regeneration, and flies with this, having laying eggs, becoming maggots, turning into flies, are really fascinating creatures. We've kind of touched on them before in our work because we just love the kind of back and forth between life and death, and we live like many people from Vermont. We live very close to nature, and so we're fascinated by just the cycle of life and death, whether it's the seasons or animals we hear dying in our backyard, or waiting for the daffodils to pop up, which they are now. It's a big theme in our work, and so flies. We thought it was cool to even put that in the title.
Love it. Yeah, anything involving nature is always a good thing, especially nowadays. We kind of need people to understand that, there's specific animals that, without them, then we're all going down. Let's just put it that way.
Amen. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely an ecosystem needed there, so that's for sure. So anyway, Toby, to kind of, before jumping into your role here, but beforehand, when like Sean or Sarah reached out to you, basically, did you know the legend beforehand about Vermont's frozen folk?
I did not. I did not know legend, and can I tell you a quick story about when I was on set? I picked up a book. And little did I know that the story was in the book. And I wish I remembered the name of it now, of the book. And I think that's where Sarah had learned about this legend as well. So in a way, I heard about it when I was being cast for it. But then actually being on set, embodying one of the characters in it, reading about it was extra special and kind of eerie. So I got to kind of discover it twice.
I don't know if this would help jog your memory, but would the book be entitled Winter in Vermont by Charles Edward Crane?
That's got to be it, yes. Thank you. I'm writing that down.
That is probably the first book that has ever spoke about it before it took off everywhere else, I guess. So when you said book, I was like, I wonder if you mean this one. So, because there's a few others, but I mean, like I was saying, it all depends on if you've seen the book cover or not.
I'm pretty sure that's it, and it's such a cool bit of lore. I mean, it's kind of beautiful, and I remember when I was reading it, feeling like if snow if words could turn into snow, it felt cold and isolated, and there was a simplicity and cleanness to the way it was written that it was really special.
Right. Yeah, the fact too that he goes into like how somebody was invited to go even watch it happen and write it down for a log and then get re-invited back when it came to springtime just to watch them thaw out and basically come back to livelihood. I guess it's like wow, like I mean, usually when you hear something like that, it's like, well, is that fiction or is it not fiction? It's supposedly somebody witnessed it, so it's like, But then, when you hear like there was supposed to be a journal or whatever, but then, it's like, well, what happened to the journal? So, yeah.
Yeah, and Paul also, there was such a simplicity to how it was written. It was almost like they were talking about, well, this is when you should, plant your seeds under this kind of moon, and when the rabbit leaves its hole, that's a good time to plant blah blah blah. It was uncanny how it was just so matter of fact that it was brilliant and super even creepier. I don't know
Right.
if it was meant to be creepy, but it was because it was so matter of fact. It was beautiful.
Oh, I think it's, in a way, it is creepy because it's like, you know, you're basically, uh, putting your older folks, like I guess, in a coma and almost like in a paralyzed state, and then you got to trust that the board that you're building with the straw and hay and these like really thin cloth just basically just help protect the body that you are doing this to throughout the rest of the winter months, and you gotta hope that there's no predator that decides that they just wanna, just break it open and stuff like
Oh
that.
man.
Besides the atmosphere as well, or yeah, atmosphere. I'll just leave it as that. The climate change. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty harrowing.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope that's the book that you possibly were talking about. If not, I know there's a few others that mentioned it, but if it's an old book, then that must be the one.
I'm positive that you nailed it. That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, it's always fun too because like I'll say this to everybody just because sometimes they haven't heard it too, which is like depending on where in Vermont, like if you ask people if they've heard this legend, there's gonna be folks that say yes, I know the legend. I'm tired of hearing it. It's overrated. And then you got people like you and a couple other people too that have never heard the legend. And it's like, well, I mean, it's like, well, how can you? Because sometimes it's not really, it's not popular out there, like you probably wouldn't have known about it either if it wasn't for not only like Sean and Sarah reaching out to you, but since they had a book to kind of say, hey, this is the story kind of thing. I mean, how else would you have found it? Especially in the book that it was actually in, Winter in Vermont. If you really, really dive into that book more, like if you do find yourself a copy, like when you get to that chapter about the hibernation of the people or whatever, it's like, wow, like this is really like the most randomest part probably throughout this entire book.
I'll bet. I wish now that you've given me the title, I'm going to keep an eye out for it because I like. I mean, it was a beautiful book, and that's the only thing I'd read. That was what was so weird that I just kind of put my finger in the book and opened it and started reading, and lo and behold, this is what they're talking about.
Exactly. So yeah, so Toby, you know, we're gonna dive into the work of the THAW. Like, so how did you end up meeting Sean and Sarah to end up getting the role to be as Alma, and then kind of take us into the journey.
Yeah. So our very first, no, maybe it was yeah, it was our first genre film called The Deeper You Dig, and it was playing at a festival called Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas. And our um, our feature film was preceded by Sean and Sarah's short film called The Water Horse, which is a really beautiful film. These guys are so talented. So that's how we got to meet, because we screened together at this really awesome festival down in Texas. And we stayed in touch. They eventually introduced me to Emily, who I think they had met through the festival circuit as well. And that was an incredible, they had just introduced us thinking, I think you guys would hit it off. And then when we got cast in the THAW and we drove up together, nice because we're both upstate New Yorkers, it just cemented our friendship, Emily's and mine. And then Sean and Sarah, having known them as directors, me being a director, they're being directors, and then working under them as an actor, it was just the most beautiful culmination. It's just so cool when you know people, you love their work, and suddenly you find yourself in it, and you get to see what it's like actually being like in the blood. The circulation of their film work, actually shooting, is such a privilege, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Emily did mention that you and her kind of drove down together, and how did she word it? And when I was chatting with her, it was like basically a way to form a bond, since she was going to be playing the daughter and you the mother. So it was like a great way to find that connection, almost like in a way like a family connection. I think is how she worded it.
It really was. And wow, what a Renaissance woman. She just does everything. And she too, as works with her husband. So we have a lot in common, but I have such respect for her, from all of those angles. She's a tremendous actor. She's a really great writer and director. She's also just one of the loveliest, most generous human beings. She's super cool.
Yeah, I had a great time talking with her, and she sounded like she had a lot of fun with doing her role as well. Which, speaking of roles, so when it came down to Alma, Toby, I mean, obviously you being a mother figure, it sounds like, it's like not really going to be hard for you at all. So I guess when it did come down to like maybe some of the stuff for the THAW, maybe not because of your character, but did you happen to have like any type of challenges where maybe it was mentally, maybe just physical? Because like I said, I mean, you were a mother, you're obviously a mom and stuff like that. So I mean, was there any type of difficulties or challenges that you had?
It's funny. I think the hardest thing was just was being a mother from a century ago, let's say, back to the century old theme. But because I'm a very like physical woman, I'm athletic. A lot of the roles I play are demanding physically, and almost a gentler soul. And she fits into more of a let's say a culturally appropriate uh, frame of motherhood, who does, I mean, I love to cook and everything, but that was when, at the time when this film is meant to be placed, there are very specific roles for women, specific roles for men. So for me, it was almost hard. It was hardest for me to kind of shuffle off my modernity and think this is a woman who is tough in her way, but it's different from the kind of toughness Toby would be. Like, in other words, I'm just very physical, and I don't think Alma is as physical a woman as she doesn't. I don't think she was someone who would go out and do stunts and this and that. And so, just trying to fit myself into that paradigm of mother from the late 1800s was challenging for me. But really fun. She's often in a weak physical state because after she takes this tea, she's hallucinating. She's very weak. It's almost like she's on the brink of death because she has to be able to hibernate for weeks. So that was the most challenging thing for me, was trying to accomplish her physicality.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And as we learned from watching too, like not only did the husband wake up early, you sort of did too, and then you were kind of going back and forth with Emily, kind of like, you did it wrong, and you should have followed. I think you put it as the recipe or something. It's been a couple like weeks now since I last thought, but you kind of it almost seemed like you were second guessing the way it was made almost without maybe thinking, well, maybe like how did like Jeffrey thought it could have been just because of the warmer weather woke you up. So I mean that could be another reason why you guys quote unthawed early too.
I think that's what it is. I think it's the unexpected early thaw, which again ties into, those issues of climate change that I think Sarah and Sean are so smart at talking about. Um, yeah, there, and it's neat the kind of focus they as writers and the characters put on, following that recipe to the T. And then when even something like a few, degrees are off, um, all hell breaks loose, literally.
Indeed, that's why oh man, I don't want to get his name wrong. Sid the sheep ended up meeting his demise too. So yeah,
Benny or Rennie, yes,
yeah, Rennie.
Call Sid, yeah,
yeah. Sid the sheep played Rennie. Poor Rennie.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. I'm trying to remember too because like obviously Jeffrey had the fun of pretty much gulping the quote soup down per se and stuff like that. But I guess what was some of your did you happen to have the creative freedom that Jeffrey had too to maybe like try acting out something in a way that you guys could see if it worked versus like maybe what Sean and Sarah wanted per se. Like Jeffrey, like for example, like he wanted to really gulp that soup down to kind of signify that he's really like starving. So I guess like did you have any creative freedom yourself?
Yeah, I think there definitely was creative freedom with them. I think with Alma, because I was so because I was really focused on trying to fit myself in her shoes, and her shoes would be definitely probably tighter than the shoes I'm used to wearing. I was really I wasn't pushing the boundaries of her too much, and I was really interested in their guidance. I really needed and wanted their guidance in making sure I was enacting her well. I mean, the biggest thing that felt so free is working with like most of my scenes. I had one really lovely scene down in the root cellar with Jeffrey, who was wonderful to work with in that dark, candlelit space. But most of my scenes, I guess, were more with Emily, and you really feel free with her because all you have to do is just kind of watch what she's doing and react to her. But one thing that was really neat too was, and I imagine she talked about this as well, is that there was the art director, production designer on the set. I think she was the art director, but she definitely was there was a magic consultant, and her name was Deidre Catero, and she's a practicing witch. And so she was really cool because basically she had made these props. Like she made the book and she wrote in them and she like made little drawings, and it was so lovingly made. And she would kind of show us, this is how you should rip the herbs. This is how you grind them. This is how you use the mortar and pestle. There are a lot of things that didn't even make it into the final edit, but she was there to help us. And she also made the bathtub that I was in, to such specific, in such specific detail and in certain kinds of flowers that you don't even see in the black and white. the different colors of flowers, and she had oils. It smelled good, and the candlelight helps. So you have this woman who really knows what she's talking about, designing the atmosphere around you, and just the ambiance was just spot on. And the fact that Sarah and Sean went to you know that they focused on these details was such a pleasure for us as actors. It, half the work is done. All the heavy lifting is done when someone puts you in that atmosphere, and all you have to do is just basically say the lines as true as you can for those characters.
Mm. Yeah, I think I kind of made a comment about like, it would be interesting to see this film in color versus black and white. But as for the time period, I feel like the black and white works.
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, the whole crew did so great, and the cinematographer, Demi Waldron, just was such a you know my she just really did such a great job with the camera. The set design, the makeup, the person doing the makeup, her name was I forget her name, but the costumer, Jasmine Murray something, she did such an amazing job. Also, when you're walking around in heavy wools and it feels authentic, that really helps as well. And not to mention, I'm sure you know this, but the place that we shot it, Old Mansfield Homestead, I think it was called. You know, one of the owners were Scott and Lyndall, and Scott Dorwart, I think is his last name. He built that to such absolute specific specs to how a house would have been made in the 1800s, using only the tools that they would use as well. So talk about authenticity. You're like in a living, breathing, loving testimony to what those houses were like. It was incredible.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. I know I think was mentioning that, and I mean like Emily too. She was mentioning just a little bit about that too. So it felt like it was like another world basically where you guys were staying. I think it's how she worded it.
Yeah, down to just the tiniest little things, like the beds would feel a certain way because they were made to look like beds from the 1800s.
Right.
Rafters, all the floorboards, the windows. I mean, there was a modern bathroom in there, but everything else was extremely lovingly made to that late 19th century aesthetic.
Right. And I think I have her name right here. Jasmine Murray. Oh God, Bergquist.
Yeah, that was the costumer. Yeah, she built those costumes, and they were gorgeous.
Yeah, perfect. I know it sounded like you were kind of like forgetting maybe the last part of her name.
Yeah,
so I just
couldn't remember that part.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's who you meant. So yeah.
Yeah.
So was there any other part, Toby, that I may be missing to talk about, or is there anything that I have not given you the chance to really talk about when it came to filming and acting in the THAW?
No, I think I love your questions. I have one fun story to tell. That's just kind of neat. So the guy who built the house, Scott, I was sitting in on the stairwell, just kind of getting ready to do a scene, and I was looking at these pieces of rust, like rusty horseshoes hanging on a wall, and other pieces of rust. And I was like, man, this just makes me feel like I'm at home, because where I live in the Catskill Mountains of upstate New York, we have a lot of acres, and we live in the middle of the woods, and there's just rust everywhere because it once was farmland. And so when he came by to talk to me, I said, when I look at these pieces of rust, they're not just rust. They make me feel like I am at home. This is the kind of rust I walk 30 feet out of my house, and I'm discovering all the time rust like this in my old farmland turned woods backyard. And he goes, "Oh yeah, well, my first girlfriend, she lives in the Catskill Mountains, so when I go down there, I'm always kind of collecting rust." And I'm like, "Catskill Mountains? Where does she live?" He's like, "Oh, it's near Roscoe, New York." I'm like, "Well, what's her name?" And he's like, and he says her name, and I go, "Oh my God, she lives down the road from me. She is one of my dearest friends." And so he found that rust literally in the same woods that I live. And so I really, when I said that I felt at home, I really was at home. It was such a strange thread that you could have this connection through rust.
Right? Yeah, that is a cool way to also say that like how small the world really is when it comes to like something coincident to happen like that.
Totally. It was a beautiful thing.
Exactly. Well, that's good. I'm glad that we kind of ran through the saw as much as we can because, like you were saying, I mean, you only had a certain amount of parts. I mean, you kind of were basically teaching your daughter in your film and, making sure that the tea was right, this was right. You and your husband went boarded up in the box and there was the shot of over Emily's shoulder while you guys were, resting, preparing yourself basically. And then, then you ended up waking up early with it. To my surprise too, you weren't really as, starving as, Jeffrey's character was. So that was, also like, kind of like, wow, like I wonder why you weren't as affected as Jeffrey's character was when it came to the whole starvation thing. But I mean, it all depends on the person anyway. The way I kind of looked at it, I guess. And as for Alma, I mean, maybe because like you were just saying, that's probably why you were having such a hard time making sure that you got her rolled down was because you're used to being the physical one, whereas Alma may not have been. So she would be able to preserve her energy longer, I think is what I'm trying to get at.
I can make a joke about like I have a little more padding than Jeffrey does. but I think that has to so in the scene Jeffrey's character wasn't granted the opportunity to kind of slowly ease out of the sleeping ritual. Like he was basically kind of ripped from it and he kind of forced himself. I don't want to give too much away, but he really is ripped prematurely out of the hibernation. Whereas my character, that's why you find her in the bathtub. She has the luxury of being eased in the more ritualized way. And so I think that is suggested that that's helpful and that's the way it's supposed to be done so people don't experience what Jeffrey is going through.
You know what? Now that you said that, that does make sense too. So yeah, I'll just leave it as that. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I don't want to say too much more of why I say that too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Toby, move away from the song now, which, for everybody that may not have seen it by now, with first off, what is wrong with you? Two, if you go to the YouTube channel Alter, it is on there. Otherwise, I have done a review for it, so I will plug that into the episode below where you can, also watch it on my review page as well, followed by whatever else I guess that goes down into the episode description later on. But anyway, so to kind of start wrapping things up just a little bit, Toby. So since this is the Haunted Vermont podcasting and yada yada yada, I know I'm saying that to like the person listening. They already know where I'm going with this because of it being a default question. Yada yada. Anyway. So Toby, and it comes to like the paranormal, the supernatural, or the cryptozoology in general, like let's just say for short, the supernatural universe, right, of the Earth. As a whole, as opinion, or maybe you could even, I could even add in to kind of make it a 2-part question, which is like, do you have any thoughts or opinions on it? And the other part would just be, is there any story that you could share that may have happened to you?
Well, I do make horror films, so it is something that I'm fascinated by. I love ghost stories. I love anything spooky. And I guess by the sheer nature that I do make these kind of stories into film and writing a little bit, means I'm open to them. I guess I'm open to certain supernatural channels in the world. I'm someone. I was just having this conversation with my daughter's boyfriend this morning. We were talking about ghosts, etc. And I was like, I can't believe that someone who is so open to these things that I've never seen one. I don't have any experiences with one. And I almost felt like, wait, well, what's wrong with me that they're not showing themselves to me? Because sometimes I feel quite psychic, and I've had experiences that feel psychic but are not about ghosts. For instance, when I was young, I would often have visions of my friends hurting themselves by accident. I'm not talking about self-harm. And then they would, like, for instance, I'd be in science class and I'd be looking across the room at my friend Amy, and I'd be like, God, I really hope Amy doesn't hurt herself. And the next thing you know, her nose is bleeding. Or one day I was waiting for the bus and I felt like someone was going to come up and pretend to strangle me. And the next thing you know, someone comes up and jokingly puts his scarf around me, pretends to strangle me. Or a friend of mine, cuts her hand in another science class. And it's just those weird things used to happen to me. And the one that happens most recently is often I have premonitions of earthquakes and they happen. And it's so bizarre. And I don't want to cause harm to people, but all my premonitions have to do with something not so pleasant that happens. But I've yet to see a ghost.
Well, I think we all can't really say we've all seen a ghost, but we've heard mysterious footsteps, we've heard disembodied voices in real time, or maybe on a recorder per se. We've heard weird knocks. I'll just say, for an example, maybe like a random door just like swung open and that you locked that door. Basically, that's what I mean. But
yeah, that hasn't even happened so much for me. I will tell you though that I was I had the privilege of helping my mom, basically being the person who helped usher her into death when she was dying, and I was the only person there with her when she died, and it was a very, very poignant moment. I won't go into incredible detail about it, but it's I look at it as a gift now, but at the time it was it kind of blew me away how powerful that was. And at the very moment she died, and my mom was not a strong woman, especially when she was incredibly feeble the last month of her death. She squeezed my hand. I thought my bones were going to break. And that for me was the most powerful, supernatural feeling experience I've ever had. At the moment of death, it's almost like she channeled all of her life and love through her feeble, bony hand into mine, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah, I sort of know that from my grandmother that passed away back in 2004. So same thing. She kind of gave me, I guess I'll just say, almost like the grip of death. Like, basically, like so tight, like you're saying, breaking my bones. Like I still remember that. So yeah, but that's interesting that you bring that up, because Emily mentioned that to me as well during the podcast, and now this is where I'm gonna kind counteract questions with you, kind of similar to Emily, and we'll see how you respond. So, ever since that has happened, Toby, have you experienced like any smells that remind you of her, like something like a perfume, like maybe her like your mother's favorite flower, like anything that all of a sudden you just took a whiff and there was a smell that you were so familiarized with?
Um, Not smells. Um, Maybe it's more words because my mom was a word lover. So sometimes I feel like words drop into my lap, like into my ears, or someone will say something, or I'll read something words that are not the most frequently heard words. Like my mom loved the word gladsome. Who
Hmm.
hears the word gladsome often? Not much. Every now and then, that word will just kind of pop into my head, or I think I'm hearing it. And so for me, it's more words. And then in terms of my dad, who died um, 21 years ago, he for him, it's more like nature. I have this thing where if a leaf falls on my head, that's my
Hmm.
dad showing me his love. And so when leaves uh, just randomly fall from a tree and smack me right in the head, for me, that's a message from my dad.
Yep, like that could very well be. But to go back to like what you were saying, hearing a voice that, or just or specific word that is actually a sign as well that your mother is with you too. Just so you know. So I mean, just those little things alone are just signs to let you know that your parents are still watching over you. I just wanted to just throw that out there.
Well,
People may not know that, but yeah, that is a common thing when it comes to loved ones that pass on. That's why I was trying to start with smell and then work my way. But uh, another thing too is like like dreams or repeating numbers or symbols, or in this case, words. You just said there's specific words that keep repeating that seem to just be placed inside of you, like you're hearing them. So again, that's a sign. Another thing is like the presence of of a of a bird. What is it? A cardinal, I think. I think it's a cardinal. I think the cardinal pretty much represents that one of your loved ones is watching over you, especially if they come close or if they fly close to you. Then no other bird really would. Like that's another sign.
oh yeah, I really, I believe you because I feel birds are very intuitive animals, and I'm always watching them. And I know that in some of our work, our work in our film work, we incorporate birds as psychopomps. They're symbols of psychopomps, like other supernatural creatures or gods and goddesses, as psychopomps mean something that helps usher the living into death, like sort of crossing that bridge. And so
Right.
yeah, birds are very, I think, I agree with you, they're super symbolic. Whenever I get up close to one, there's an owl that lives near us, I always feel like I'm having a religious experience. And of course, when you watch things like groups of birds, like murmurations, um, they're they're just they're incredibly intuitive creatures. And if you think about it, their point of view, being able to fly in the sky and have that aerial perception of us down below, they're so much more omniscient than we are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the problem though with humanity. Well, maybe some, I should say. I'll just say that. Like people like us when we're kind of really digging into this type of subject or whatever, like we kind of look outside the box. Let's just put it that way. And I think that would be the correct way of putting it. But like with other folks, they just look at it and look at we could just say, well, this keeps showing up. Right, that's like a sign. It's a miracle. It's not a coincidence. And then you got somebody that might be like, oh, sure it is. It's like, right. Like, how many times can this happen before you say, like, no, this is not a coincidence anymore? You know?
Yeah.
So, that might be a bad example, but it's just another way of looking at perspective of, like, you got to really think outside the box of the what if.
Why not? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? um, but yeah, let's see. Like I lost my dad in 2003, and there was a couple times where I felt during the night like I heard my dad's voice say hello to me, and I like woke up out of a dead sleep or something like that, and it was
Uh,
weird. But and then like I swear I could smell like cigars, or yeah, the cigars that my dad used to smell, which was like White Owl cigars, which I don't even think you can find those anymore. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But I do remember White Owls. That's what brand he used to smoke for cigars. But yeah, I mean, I've always been fascinated with trying to learn more and stuff like that. And as I, you know, been doing this for almost 13 years, you kind of want to take in every bit of information you possibly can. So the fact that smells is something, animals could be something, numbers, whatever. Like, another thing that I can share that I haven't really talked about it yet because it's still like fresh in me, but like back in 2022, I lost my best friend around my age at the time. And, so a year later after he had died, I for some reason decided I wanted to look up to see like what his animal would have been. And his animal was a rabbit. And what was interesting is when it came down to, um, around his birthday month, all I could see was rabbit and
oh,
rabbit.
wow.
So I kind of took that as a sign, and I said, I see you're watching me. I'm okay. Go watch your family, because I think you should go make sure they're okay too. So,
Oh,
but
I'm so sorry that you lost your friend. But what a beautiful visitation. Wow.
yeah, like it almost seemed like every day I was seeing a rabbit just casually doing its thing and everything else, whether it be around where I am right now or at work, there was always a sign of a rabbit. So it was very interesting. But yeah,
That is,
I mean, is that a coincidence though? I mean, I don't know.
yeah, and why not? Like, how beautiful that you can take meaning from it. I mean, you won't know. How can you even know whether it's a coincidence or not? But how beautiful that you can find meaning in it, so that no matter what it is, whatever the truth is, it doesn't matter because you gain something beautiful from that visitation. And I love that you're open to that. How fortunate that you can receive it that way.
Well, I mean, I guess, like I said, I mean, as much as I've kind of been doing this and stuff, I mean, I don't really call myself a skeptic anymore when it comes to the paranormal stuff. I'm more skeptic when it comes to the cryptozoology. Like, it doesn't mean that I won't tell you that you did not see a Bigfoot, but I would like to see it for my own sake. And then that will push me over the edge. I mean, I don't need to know that that they're the paranormal world anymore, but like, just to see like a Bigfoot or whatever that's out there, I mean, that would fully turn me out of skeptic completely. But I mean, I'm trying to figure out why I'm still skeptic about cryptids if I'm not skeptic about ghosts. But it's just, I think it's because of even the people that I listen to on the podcast that I listen to. It's like, that's just not supposed to be real. It's not supposed to be out there. And it is. And it's just like, well, then yeah, it's like, well, then if that's the case, where did they come from? Which I completely 100% agree. If there's a Bigfoot and this and that out there, or Dogman or whatever, it's like, it's like, How can something like that exist? I guess is where my skepticism comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't you have a lot? You have some really neat, yeah, ones up there that I don't know much about, but I've kind of heard of, like what is like the Pigman, obviously Champ in the
Yep,
lake.
champ.
What? But isn't there something like a slippery man or slippery skin or something?
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Slippery, oh man, hang on. Let me pull that up real quick. I know what you're talking about too. Uh, Slippery. Oh, maybe I don't have it right here on me. Slippery, oh, here it is. Yeah, old slippery skin. Yeah, apparently it's like a bear. Apparently.
that's
Yep.
neat. We have a lot of those.
Yeah, I forget the story exactly about slippery skin. I think it's like, it's memory serves me right. It's like basically an elusive bear where you can kind of shoot at it and it just slips away or something like that. I think that's how it
Oh,
goes. I forget exactly. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, you're right about Pigman. It's the Northfield Pigman, and
yeah,
then you got Champ from Lake Champlain, which is
right.
basically our Loch Ness monster. So yeah,
Yeah, those are the only ones I've heard of. Yeah.
yeah. We also have a water witch known from the Woodbury Lake, I guess. Which I've got to look more into that one. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting,
Nice.
weird cryptids around Vermont for sure.
Well, again, because you guys are one of the coolest states, perhaps the coolest state. I mean, I think the fact that it was the first state to abolish slavery is pretty neat. So
That is true,
you have a good karma.
right? Well, I just learned too, like a little bit more. A couple years ago, I learned about the only witch trial that happened in Vermont. And the outcome was good. I remember when I was doing a video for my Haunted Vermont channel, I basically, because it happened after Salem, I was just like, well, we probably took notes from Salem because what we did was probably more common sense than like what happened in Salem, which was we actually saved the person that was about to drown.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
great story. That's really cool.
Yeah, and yeah, she was accused of killing her husband. Well, go figure. And she was trialed by the Duncan chair or something like that. I think is what it was in a river, and she was down in the water for so long that she wasn't obviously coming back up. So yeah, they dived into the cold river at the time during the winter month of whatever month it was, and they literally brought her back out from the river before she drowned.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
that's neat.
yeah, and what's fascinating is that like she was basically on the border of Vermont and Massachusetts. So she ended up being buried over in the Massachusetts end, which I ended up going to her family plot and finding her family plot and showing the plot on video and took my own pictures and stuff because, I wanted to pay her my respect too.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just who I am. I like right now I'm trying to track down some information about this lady. I just don't want to reveal too much because everybody knows who I'm talking about, but I'm trying to also see if there's any more information out there before I just blurb out everything too that I'm looking at too. But it's another interesting story too that has happened in the past. So but yeah, I'll keep that under wraps for right now. But yeah, but Toby, just like, I mean, I guess what you could say when it comes to death and why I look at things like that too, like when it came to like my friend passing and with the rabbit and stuff, I think it's just because when I was younger, like, I had a grandfather and an uncle pretty much die like 24 hours apart. And the weird part was both of them were in the same, hospital room. So
Mm.
that had to have been, um, man, I don't even know a good word to this. Like, when one died, it's like, Jesus, like, like, what was my uncle thinking? Like when he learned that, you know, my grandfather wasn't going to be coming back into the room anymore, so he was there for the next 24 hours before he went, is what I
Wow.
guess is what I'm trying to get at. So, that was mainly like the first time that I kind of got to learn what exactly death is in the world. And from there, the rest is history. But yeah, you could say death has kind of opened my mind. And then when I learned that there's possibly like an afterlife with the paranormal realm, that's really where it came to my interest when I was young, because it's like, well, what if there is more to life or than life afterwards? So that's kind of where it all began as well.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's a subject that never loses fascination. Oh, sorry, a very loud car. Um, uh, I appreciate the mystery. That's all I can say. I do.
Yeah, exactly. Will we have all the answers? No, no, we won't.
Thankfully.
But, yeah. Yeah, so Toby, to wrap things up after all that, and I apologize for my little tangent there, but
No, I loved hearing about it.
good. So I guess, Toby, to wrap things up, because I don't want to take any more time too, because as you were saying, off the air, and off the air, I'll just say, like, I want to let you have family time too. But so for anybody that is curious about, like, your works and stuff, I know you already mentioned the Wonder Wheel and stuff, but where else can people keep up to date with you?
Yeah, our website is Wonder Wheel Productions, which has information on all of our feature films, and we also have a band called Hellbender, but the E's are sixes. That music is on Spotify, and we use a lot of the music in our films. It's kind of like sometimes it's a little between like ethereal and metal, I guess. Sometimes a little
Nice.
poppy. And then yeah, wonderwheelproductions.com. And then on Instagram we're adams.family.films. And information is always on there about what we're up to or what we've been up to.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you've definitely been busy and you stayed busy, which is always good. So yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I'm gonna now have to check out your Hellbender now, because that's awesome.
Oh, please do. Yeah, it's on either like Spotify or iTunes or Bandcamp. It's fun.
Oh yeah, I love Bandcamp too. So perfect. Yeah. So again, Toby, I mean, I feel like before I just start beating a dead horse with a bat or something, I'll just say thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to your future stuff. And maybe if you do more Vermont related legends or whatever, I'll be happy to have you back on to share your experience within that realm of whatever chaoticness comes out of it, I guess.
I'd love that, and I hope that happens because I really dig Vermont. And thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate this, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, awesome. I enjoyed my time talking with you too, Toby. And for everybody else, you know the drill. Keep your eyes open, because you just never know if an apparition will appear in front of you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Haunted Vermont. My name is Paul Dosky, and joining me is the lovely Tessa Baker.
Hello! Hi, everybody.
Hello, baby. And Ghosty and Ghost and Witch and whatever else in between, I guess.
Anyways, so basically, we're here to give our thoughts on the THAW. Paul has been itching to get my opinion on this short
Well, I've been
horror.
trying to get somebody else to join me on this. I didn't just want to talk to myself about this. This fantastic short horror film based on the Vermont legend of the Vermont Frozen folks. So it'd be nice to get somebody else's opinion, especially since I have had the pleasure to talk with all three actors and actresses that played a part in this lovely tale. And the only people I would have left really to interview, you could say, would be Rennie or Sid the Sheep, and basically the writers and directors. Really, that's all that would be left for episodes for this. But anyway, yeah, we'll try to do our best to dive in, and I apologize for our daughter. She just seems to be up and about, and especially listening to her tablet in the background. So if that's distracting, you can just turn it off right now because that's going to be hard to edit out. So I apologize. Right now, where to begin? Tessa, so maybe it would just be better off with you to start it because, like I just said, I have had the pleasure to talk with the three actors and actresses, basically. The three people that acted in it is what I should say. And, I kind of got to hear their opinions on it, of how things were, this and that, what their thoughts on of what happened, this and that. So it kind of coincides with how I first have watched it. But then after, talking to them, rewatching again for the fourth time, it's to kind of start to fall into place of, everything. So I'm curious to know, in this case, for your perspective, since this is obviously your first time, what did you think of it? Especially with, the legend of the Vermont Frozen folk.
So, I watched the THAW for the first time today. So, I completely just went into it blind, open mind and everything, and how the daughter came back home to her parents because she was unable to, from what I gathered, she was unable to land a man because she was unable to bear him children. So she ended up having to come back home to her parents in the dead of winter, and you see the parents down in the I want to say the basement or whatever, talking about their food rations and how much food they have and how they don't have enough to split between the three of them for the winter. So I was like, oh boy. So how are they gonna do this? So apparently the mother had this book that I'm guessing was passed down to her from her mother and down from generations that contained concoctions, and one of the concoctions in this book is a sleeping draft, I'm assuming. And the mother helps the daughter fix it. They make it together, and then she has to give the sleeping draft to both of her parents because that's what they decided, that they were going to go down and sleep until spring. That way the daughter would have enough food to hopefully get to spring, that she would have a chance. So both the parents take this sleeping draft, and I imagine that it probably was horrid tasting and everything, and probably it looks like it caused some kind of physical distress to both the parents, because you could see the mother like labored breathing, struggling to breathe and everything, and the dad falling over as they're trying to make their way out to these coffins that the father had built out of wood outside in the snow. So she gets her parents into these coffins so that they can go to sleep for the winter. And one of the things that the father had said to the daughter before they drank the tea was, if you have to slaughter the sheep, then do it to survive. And she's like, well, that's my friend and blah, blah, blah. Hopefully I won't have to do that. We'll talk about the sheep more later. I have some thoughts about what happens. So she starts to go through, and she gets up the next day, or I don't even think she sleeps the first night that her parents went into the coffins. I don't even think she slept at all, to be honest. So she's checking them in the morning to make sure that they both have a heartbeat and that they're not dead, which that's just scary. And then she starts going through each day and preparing her meals and rationing her meals out and everything. And the only company that she has is her pet sheep, which she sings to and everything. And I don't know however many nights went by or how long it was, but one night she hears something outside, and she goes out to investigate, and you see off in the background behind her that her father is not in his, I'm just going to say, for lack of better wording, his sleepy by coffin. And the mother is still in hers, and obviously still playing Sleeping Beauty in that. So she goes off to try to find her dad, and where she finds her dad is eating her pet sheep. And the first thing that went through my mind when I saw this was, oh my God, the poor sheep. And you literally could tell that the thing is still alive as the dad is eating him. And that's just horrific. And that poor girl's probably scarred forever. So right then and there, you know, something went horribly, horribly wrong with the sleeping draft, with the dad specifically. Either he wasn't given enough or something happened. I don't know what. So he's awake now, and apparently he's starving. So he's basically gorging himself on anything and everything that the daughter puts in front of him, gets irritable and mean to her about it, saying that he's starving, needs more food, blah, blah, blah. And then the daughter has to wake the mother up. And the mother wakes up, but she seems more normal than the dad. Like, it's totally different between their two demeanors. Like, you know right off the bat that something went horribly wrong with the dad. So he gets increasingly irritable, and at one point starts to show signs of wanting to be physically violent towards the daughter, because he can't seem to get enough to eat, and he's really upset about the fact that he's awake during winter, and it hasn't even gotten to the spring thaw season yet, and that both the parents are basically awake now, and they're not supposed to be. So at one point, we see the daughter trying to fend off her crazed father with an axe because she wasn't able to give another man children, but he was able to find a wife with another woman that would give him children. And because of the fact that the daughter couldn't land a man to secure money for her family so that they wouldn't be having to resort to putting the parents to sleep for the winter or worrying about food rationing and stuff like that. He basically is like, you're useless. What good are you? You know, just belittling and degrading the daughter like so horribly. And she's basically trying to keep him at bay with an axe because she's afraid for her life that her father would actually go to the extremes of physically hurting her, or her ending up like the sheep, I imagine. Rip sheep. So he starts to go through convulsions right in front of the daughter and starts vomiting up what I think is blood, and then just dies right there in the snow, right at the daughter's feet. Hi, baby. Hi, honey. Hi, baby. So then the mother comes out and she's in hysterics and everything because her husband just basically dropped dead. Hi, baby. Hi, honey. And then basically they had to do like something that's similar to a funeral pyre for the dad, and then that's where they end it. So I'm wondering, Paul, what do you think happened with the dad's like sleeping draft? Why do you think that he was the only one that woke up wrong?
So my initial thought was technically it was probably because there wasn't enough tea, like he kind of said. Like, you made it wrong, some, like, blah, 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 blah. But also, which I'm rewatching for the fourth time now to do this, I can definitely see the shot that, you know, the people that I talked with, like Jeffrey, Emily, and Toby now, where they're talking about the shot where it looked like it's starting to thaw as for the weather. And so could the weather have taken the effect of waking them early, not the tea? So maybe the tea was actually made right, but it was actually the weather becoming warmer, which caused it to basically, you know, think it's springtime. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because there was still snow on the ground and everything, and like I'm trying to figure out like how it was like quote unquote getting warmer when there's
look at the shots of like almost look like the snow was dripping, almost like a way of saying it's getting warmer. Like, you know, it was dripping from the roof and stuff like that.
Yeah, like off the icicles. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that could have factored into it, or the daughter maybe didn't give the dad enough tea, and the mother got the right dosage and the dad didn't. I mean, I don't know, but like those are some serious side effects from him not getting the right dosage. Like, his first instinct is to get up and like kill the poor sheep and eat it. Like,
well, that's starvation for you, I guess. I mean, like you were saying before, like, how long were they in those wooden coffins, you could say, before they accidentally woke up? And so he must have been starving because how did Toby put it when I was talking to her Toby put it as, well, she kind of had more meat. She had more cushion, is how she worded it, than Tiffany. So Alma's character, or Toby's character, Alma, had more cushion than Jeffrey's character, who was Tiffany. Basically, is how she put it. Maybe that's another factor of why he woke up early too, and was, more crazy starving as well. Because another way you can look at it for it from what Toby said, and I just want to remind people that are maybe listening, which again, I apologize for our daughter's tablet in the background and stuff like that, but I just wanted to still do this and stuff. But look at it like this. So we're talking 19th century. The women aren't really doing that much labor work per se. Like, they're not using a lot of muscle. Usually it's the male, right, providing for their family, basically in this case. Whereas, the women are mainly not really as physical. So maybe the fact that, because of the fact that they're not, or she's not physically there, like, doing a lot, she able to conserve energy more, whereas Tiffany is trying to, provide for the family, whether it be chopping wood, etc., doing the stuff that we would do to provide our family, basically. So his energy would be used up more. So so that's another, I guess, way you could look at it. And that, again, and I said this with everybody that I talk to, like, the imagination is such a great tool of, you can think of one way, and it could very well be a different way, but, it's just the imagination of storytelling. It doesn't completely give you the answer, but you still have that imagination of, well, maybe it could have happened this way.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the sheep, I kind of thought the same thing, like, why the sheep? And it's just like, well, she woke up early, and poor Rennie was right there. I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I guess survival instincts kicked in, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the way I would.
I mean, that's the only way that I could look at it. But still, poor Remy.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Rennie. Yeah, you said you were also saying how the father was gorging himself and stuff. Again, that's just another way of saying he again, we talked about this too. I think it was Toby and I, and Jeffrey. I think Jeffrey too as well. Where we were talking basically about if you actually go back and really pay close attention, which again, like, the amazingness of, the forced time playing through is basically, is basically Toby's character Alma. She had the bath, which is supposed to be the last part of the quote ritual of basically bringing somebody back in springtime, which is the bath, which is the warm bath. And
and it had herbs and stuff in it.
Correct. But only the mother had the bath. The father did not. So maybe that's another factor in of why the father basically was so.
Well, he woke up. He woke up the wrong way. He was supposed to be brought back with the bath, not wake up on his own.
Right, but I mean, but he still didn't get that bath.
Yeah,
he still didn't have the bath.
Well, I'm guessing because the daughter, he was already awake, so the daughter didn't think that he even needed it because he was already awake. I'm guessing.
Or could it be the fact that you were kind of putting it, his demeanor was way off. So I don't even think he would have listened anyway. Hey, you need to take a bath, blah 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 blah. I don't think he would have listened as well, because I mean, even the mother was trying to hide from the father because, well, the demeanor changed in him. So
even she knew something was wrong.
yeah, even she knew that he wasn't acting right. He was more angered about it because he thinks that she was trying to kill her own mother, which she wasn't. But I mean, it's just one of those things where, well, maybe what if he had the bath, would I have calmed him down? Whereas Toby's character had the bath to make her sort of come out of it. So again, that it's one of those things where it's like imagination. It's like, what happened? Like, what did he just besides the fact that he woke up early, I mean, eventually so did Toby, but or Alma in this case, like for character views or names. But I mean, like, at least she was calm enough to take the bath, whereas Tiffany, well, he, like you were saying, gorging himself with food. Speaking of gorging himself, babe, what did you think of him gorging his food, like with the potato, the stew and stuff? What did you think of those scenes?
I really couldn't get over the fact that he literally was like it was like he was so starved that it was like his hunger could not be sated by anything. Like he just kept eating and eating and eating, and even snatching the food off of his daughter's plate and eating her food and everything. It was just like he had this endless hunger, like a bottomless stomach, and no matter how much he ate, he just couldn't fill himself up.
Which I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because when Jeffrey and I were talking about that scene, especially when he dunked his head into the stew, so that was all him. That was like he asked to do it before the take happened, and they didn't let Emily know. So those, like, that reaction there when he plunges his head in to slurp the soup and stuff like that was all him. Like, that was all him, and that was Emily's reaction to it, basically, all in one take. And as for the potato bit, when he grabbed it and bit a huge chunk out of it, he pretty much was saying that he does not recommend that to do that in real life, because you might choke on the potato. so that was all improvised by Jeffrey. So that basically says and shows the creativity of the directors to allow their actors to basically play with the scene to see if they could, make it much more weirder, darker, scarier, whatever you want to call it, than what was probably initially in the script.
It was definitely an interesting take on the tale of the frozen people. Like, I didn't even know about this tale until Paul mentioned it to me. Like, I didn't know anything about it until he was like, "Oh, did you know that such a legend like this exists? The frozen people?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then he proceeded to tell me that there was a movie about it, like a short horror film about it. So before he even told me, I didn't even know that there was ever any mention of it. So it's interesting for sure.
What do you think of the daughter? Like as far as Emily's acting for the daughter.
I thought she did a great job, to be honest. Like she was very convincing. Like even her fear, her distress, her despair, just all of it was just very convincing, and her character just drew you in. And I felt for her, with having to give her parents a sleeping draft, you know, and she blamed herself for having to do it because she wasn't able to land a husband. So she essentially had to
Go back home. Yeah.
go back home to her parents, which then caused her parents to have to make a difficult decision to essentially sacrifice themselves, so to speak, and have them sleep until winter, which, like I said before, Paul told me about it. I thought that, only most animals that hibernate during the winter could do that. I didn't know people could do that without food, just basically sleep without food. But I guess you learn something new every day.
That's right. And for anybody else, there's a book on it too, sort of like the oldest book that sort of mentioned this is Winter in Vermont by Charles Crane. That's like the oldest book that actually mentions about the Vermont frozen slope. In the end, what did you think of the film in general? Because of it being black and white, and it's also in the old way. Like, it's not full screen. It's not really widescreen. It's the old-fashioned way of watching, like, a movie or TV.
I actually enjoyed it. If anything, it made me focus on the screen more. Like, I like movies like that. It's not like, bam, like, use all like sorts of colors and stuff to like draw you in. I've always liked black and white films, and the fact that they chose to take this film in a black and white direction, pretty much classic mode, and the era, like the time period that they chose to go with as kind of like, I don't know if I want to say Puritan age or whatever is the right wording, but overall I enjoyed the film. Like I said, the only thing that really like pulled at my heartstrings was the poor sheep, but other than that, I mean, it was really good. I thought everybody did a great job acting, and everybody's characters were interesting and unique in their own ways, and I felt everybody did an excellent job.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed watching it. I thought everybody was believable in their roles. The fact that the directors, Sean and Sarah, and the writers, Sean and Sarah, they allowed that creative freedom to let the actors like do what they thought would be awesome to do. Like I mentioned, Jeffrey's character, Tiffany, who, basically wanted to try out these few particular scenes, and, they left them in for the final result. Like him, grabbing the potato out of the daughter's hand or Emily's hand, literally biting a chunk off just to say how much he was basically a glutton. And same with when he put his whole head into the soup to slurp it all up. Like that was all Jeffrey's idea. Like Emily, when that was going on, I guess Emily had no idea that was going to happen. and they went with it, and she reacted right on the spot to do like one take with some of that. So the fact that they were able to continue with that and Emily not missing a beat, I think that's very fantastic. And if you haven't watched this already, I myself would say you need to check this out. Even if it at least sparks interest to look up more of the legend itself.
Yeah, because you can find it on YouTube. It's like easily accessible on YouTube. You don't have to pay anything for it. You can literally just search it, find it, and watch it. And it's definitely worth the watch. Because, like Paul said, it's an interesting take on the folklore of the frozen people.
Right. And I guess with that being said, Seth, I thank you so much for your time to talk with me a little bit about this. I mean, I just wanted to do that because, like I said, I haven't really had a chance to really make this sort of episode to sort of just to have an opinion on this like this with somebody else. So thank you for allowing that and our daughter, I guess, to sort of let us do it.
Yeah, sort of let us do it, even though she kind of chimed in and was giving her input, which is fine. You know, she's doing Amara things.
Yep, exactly.
And yeah, it was nice to chat about it. I know it's been a bit since we've actually sat down and talked about a movie or folklore or anything of that nature, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, that's it for now. I mean, if you made it this far, then I'm glad that you did. And if you have not checked out the interview that I had the pleasure of talking with both actresses and actor, you guys can also go back and check out those interviews as well. I chatted with Emily Bennett, Jeffrey Grover, and Toby Poser. All great people to talk with. I had a really fun time making this short horror film with Sean and Sarah, and hopefully we can get Sean and Sarah on board to discuss the writing and directing process of this to help bring the legend of the Vermont frozen folks to life. And until next time, people, just keep your eyes open because you just never know what you might come across in the Green Mountain state of Vermont.